Okay. Well, good evening. Tonight we're conducting interviews for 3 of the applicants who have responded to our request for proposals for the proposed smart sewer project at Littleton Common. Leading this process through the procurement process has been our town engineer and DPW head, Chris Stoddard, and he'll be conducting the 3 interviews tonight. Although joining us tonight are 3 town representatives who have also reviewed the proposals and have had a role in developing the questions with Chris the other day at our posted meeting on Monday. So to that end, I'll just make introductions. Myself, Paul Glavy from the Board of Selectmen, Chuck DeCoste, also from the Board of Selectmen, Vice Chair of the Board, and Bob Zimmerman, who is a town resident, former Board of Health Chair, and the author of the report that the town took delivery on, when, 2014, something like that, 13? 12, time escapes us.
Just yesterday.
And professionally, he's the executive director of the Charles River Watershed Association. Another selectman, Melissa Hebert, who's doing 2 different meetings tonight and was present on Monday, will join us when she can. She's at another meeting right now. So with that, Chris, I think I'll just hand it over to you.
Okay, so thank you guys for coming out. How we're going to conduct this is going to be about a 25-minute presentation from the proposers, and then we have a series of questions for them. They've all been given the questions ahead of time to keep it as fair as possible. So basically that's it. With that said, I'll turn it over to Wright Pierce.
Great, thank you. Kevin Olson from Wright Pierce, Senior Project Manager, work out of our Andover office. Thanks again, guys, for the opportunity. Appreciate the chance to come talk to you. And Mike
Yeah,
Gagey.
and Mike Gagey, also from Wright Pierce, principal.
And here's the aforementioned Melissa Hebert, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. So, Chris and I did chat a little bit about, what would work best for you guys in terms of our presentation format. So, yeah, we did choose to put together a PowerPoint presentation. Hopefully that works okay for you guys. You'll hear from both of us. And then we actually did put together a couple of boards as well. So, depending on where we go, maybe with some of the discussion, and maybe some of Mike's topics, we may head over to that board there. So, anyways,
Can I interrupt you? I was negligent not mentioning our town administrator, Keith Bergman, who I think you guys met anyways earlier.
we did.
Okay, great.
I think I've met in probably Provincetown or elsewhere. We've been doing sewers all over the years.
Yeah, so, anyways, I do remember a few years ago sitting in this room, and I think there was a meeting at the police station a couple of years ago, sitting in, and, some of the energetic meetings regarding this project. So looking forward to actually being at the table with you guys. So, quick, overview of our presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about the team, and Wright Pierce qualifications. We fully understand, and we're not going to repeat our written proposal to you guys, but try and highlight some of the things that we think, are worth considering for you guys when you make your selection. Mike's going to get into the weeds a little bit more and talk about some of the details and what about your smart sewer project. And then, of course, we'll close, leave plenty of time for question and discussion. So Wright Pierce, who are we? I know, Chris, you've had some experience with us, and I think, you probably are familiar with us, and I know, Keith, you are. So we're a full-service engineering firm. We've been at it for 70 years. We consider ourselves mid-size, so we're not that big, giant firm. We are New England-focused. You can see from the middle part of the slide there, we're local. We have an office in Andover, so we're just 15 minutes up, 495, and a little jaunt up 93. But we also have some people that are nearby, too. Sometimes that's important. Sometimes it may not be. You guys are ultimately the judge. But what it does mean, we think, is we can be responsive to your needs. We know the area, and we've worked for the town. I live in Dunstable. I used to live in Groton, so I know the area very well. I shop at Market Basket at the Point. And then, not to be full of ourselves, but, we do take some pride in some of the quality engineering work that we do. So you can see that we have won some awards that, we think deserves at least a quick touch. So you can look at the numbers. Again, I've already noted we've been doing this for 70 years. 90% of our business, and we think this is important, is municipal. That being said, there is a little bit of a private, public perhaps component here, and we have done a lot of private work too, and you guys again have seen that in our proposal. We're 100% employee-owned, so we're fully invested, so to speak, and committed to our work and our clients. And then unlike some firms, we actually do have all major disciplines in-house. Disciplines, architectural, structural, electrical, instrumentation. We think that brings some value, so you really get kind of single-pointed responsibility, when you work with Wright Pierce. Let's get into the wastewater part of it. You can see on the left there, we do it all. We do the collection, treatment, effluent disposal, and frankly, all of those items on the left really are encompassed in your project, in some way, shape, or form, in your smart sewer project. A couple other things to think about. We do a lot of work with Central Region. I'm doing a lot of projects with Dave Boyer right now, and Xiaoning Chen out of Worcester. So we have a good working relationship with them. We know what it takes to, let's say, get a groundwater discharge permit with Central Region. And then, we can do traditional work, traditional sewer projects, but we do a lot of work, and I'm sure you've seen it I know Mike's done a lot of it in his career. A lot of smart approaches, a lot of innovative, cutting-edge type stuff. So we don't subscribe to the one-size-fits-all. It's got to be specific to your needs and your project. And then, we also wanted to let you know, too, we understand that you guys might have an interest in not just doing the traditional design bid build, but maybe a design build is something that you have an interest in as well. Similar project experience, not going to hit all the projects there. You've seen those. We put our best 10 forward in our written proposal. But smart sewer experience, again, just want to make sure you guys have a pretty strong feel that we have the resume for this. It's not something that's new for us. We think that's important. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but Rich Protazowicki, who sits next to me up in our Andover office. Chuck, I think you might know him as basketball dads. I've heard rumor. Anyways, the message we're trying to convey to you guys is we've done some work in town. Granted, it's not wastewater work, it's water work, but over at Beaver Brook and also a little bit at Spectacle Pond. So we have a familiarity with working, in town. And also, if you just go outside the borders, we've done some water work in Acton, we've done some work in Groton. We actually did do the wastewater treatment plant and helped them get the groundwater discharge permit up at Cornerstone Square. I hope that's not a bad thing. We think it's a neat little development there too, but again, very similar type work. So, the best technical solutions, the best smart solutions are great, but there's a number of other things that need to get factored in, and the financial component is huge, so we actually do that, and we have the expertise in-house to, help write grants, and then help, when you get the money, help manage it through, to help do the financial modeling, and Mike will probably talk to you a little bit about some of the work that was done by Mr. Zizzi, a few years ago. We think it's a pretty good model. SRF loan funding, we're doing a lot of work with on wastewater projects. We think there might be a chance that this project could get from, instead of the traditional 2%, maybe down to a 0. We'd be happy to talk to you about some of those strategies. So again, you can kind of read down, but we have experience in all of those. USDA rural development, you guys are okay with the $10,000 population criteria, but your MHI is a little bit too much, so you couldn't get a grant, but you could get a loan. Keith, that's probably something you're very aware of. So I'm going to close with, the project team. Obviously, you've got us two here tonight. And Ed Leonard, unfortunately couldn't join us, but he would work with us. A couple of takeaways here. With our proposal, we suggested that the town think about taking maybe a half a step back and revisiting, some things. It's been a few years that have gone by. We think there's a lot of smart strategies on the table, but really decide what are viable and practical, for you going forward. So myself and Mike and Ed, we all, we have the gray hair to prove we've been around the block a little bit, and so we're not here just to, do the interview, but we would actually roll the sleeves up and work with you. And, should you guys choose Wright Pierce, Chris, you and I would probably be stuck together, so for better or for worse. But we do have the depth, so that's really kind of our first thought on how the team would shape out going forward. But then, when you get beyond that, I had already noted, we have full in-house disciplines, including hydrogeological, which is critical for groundwater discharge, soil evaluation, and the rest. So, and then lastly, and not to steal some of your questions, Chris, but subcontractors, we would have none to begin with. But, going forward, depending on the level of expertise needed on hydrogeo, we might pull in some modeling, field survey, wetlands delineation. So, that being said.
Thanks, Kevin. One of the fun things for me personally and for the firm was to look at where you've been, evaluate your smart sewer strategy, and ask some questions. And over the years, decades, I've been practicing, there's 4 key questions. You know, is the problem correctly identified? Are we talking about a round peg in a round hole? Is the right solution identified? Have people balanced the risks and the rewards? And is there close control over costs? So those are sort of the questions we were asking ourselves as we went through the 2012 document. And let me say, high marks for the town's outlook here. I think the goals, many of the goals are right on track. Phasing clearly is a way to manage uncertain build-out potentials. I wish all of our clients would look at waste materials as resources. You need to balance the water use of the town and make sure you recharge where appropriate, the Merrimack River watershed, local cost recovery being important, and there is a place with caution for public-private partnerships. Well, with that said, if you then get to the solution, we put up a warning sign. As you see from our proposal, we think that you're not quite ready to go ahead and do the full extent of the RFP as requested. I know that's a little bit outside the box, but I think it's warranted. We think that we'd like to see some revisions in the strategy before you proceed, and we think that the cost model that you have, the rate model, is very solid, and I think if we could change some of the input factors, you have a very quick way to determine any changes that might be needed. And we would view our role as being the peer reviewer, directing those additional studies. And it's a bit of a stretch. We've only had a couple of weeks and a small amount of time with the document, but I think it's likely that we would recommend some changes. Here are some questions we've raised, and I must be frank. We've looked at the document. We've had a short period of time to look at it, but we haven't had a chance to talk to the authors and do the rigorous approach that really is necessary. So take what I'm saying with that, that caveat. The first question we raise is the choice of constructed wetlands appropriate? And I have a lot of serious questions about that, and I think that whereas there have been some good experience in the Mid-Atlantic states using constructed wetlands for secondary treatment and surface water discharge, I don't think you can apply the same set of benefits in the New England situation, needing to remove nitrogen and cold climate and look at the weather outside today. Second comment we have is that it's one thing to size a constructed wetland based on traditional practice, but the benefits of tipping fees from septage and food waste have a flip side. The flip side of that coin is you get some pretty nasty waste streams that you need to deal with. You squeeze the water out of septage, that water's got to go somewhere. You create a slurry for a digester, and that liquid's got to go somewhere. So you can't just use standard practice in sizing a constructed wetland without considering those nasty return flows. So that's a big unknown for us. And as I say, a lot of the experience in the Mid-Atlantic states is with secondary treatment. Looking around the room, you probably already all have primary treatment in your backyard in the form of a septic tank. It's federal law since 1972 that municipalities provide secondary treatment. But a lot of places you need to also remove nitrogen. And one of those places is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. If you want a groundwater discharge permit, you can't just settle for secondary treatment. You need to remove nitrogen as well. And our take of the report that we've looked at says nitrogen has not been considered appropriately or in enough detail. Now, you build a constructed wetland and it snows in the winter. Never snows here, does it? It rains. All of a sudden, you've got not the wastewater flow that you put into the wetland, but you've also got the water that's coming out of the sky. So maybe on a rainy day with snow melt in March, it's not seeing 30,000 gallons a day, it's seeing 50,000 gallons a day. Well, so what? If you were discharging to the surface waters, okay, no big deal. But you have to size and get a permit for the effluent disposal facilities to handle both flows. You also need to size a supplemental nitrogen removal facility to make sure that in cold weather that wetland is getting, it won't get enough nitrogen removal, so you need to supplement it. So our experience with constructed wetlands has been fairly positive, but in a greenhouse. So New England climate is taken off the table, and you've got better conditions for that to work. In the facilities proposed for Littleton, you won't have that. Now, one of the things that is very important, I said you got to have the right balance between risks and rewards, and you got to manage costs. What we see in the report you have is that the cost estimates aren't based on local New England information. I'll show you a graph in a minute that supports that. And further, we think that while there are potential for tipping fee benefits and sale of electricity and the like, those are all good, we think that the past work has underestimated the costs of gaining those credits. So the credits may be fine, but the cost to generate them, I think, are significantly more. Here's a graph that, I'll give you the background of it. A report called the Barnstable County Cost Report. 5 people were identified by the Cape Cod Commission to prepare this report. Keith, you probably know some of them. Myself, Brian Dudley at DEP, Tom Cambreri at the Commission, the Cape Cod Commission, Sue Rask, who's now the Health Director at Concord, and George Hoyfelder, who runs the Septic System Test Center at Otis Air Force Base. And our charge was to say, people read on the internet about a certain technology and here's what it costs, and people do their own estimates, and we need, all the communities in the Southeast region need a tool that's Massachusetts specific. So we tried to figure out what the cost per gallon was of 20 existing wastewater facilities. And you'll see the individual points on that curve. Keith, number 20 is Provincetown. And you can see a steep curve. And so the point is the cost per gallon declines significantly with the increasing size. Now, I just today plotted another set of curves below the red line. And those are the curves that were used in the costing of the Littleton Smart Sewer Facility. And you can see the difference. And I think the explanations are clear. The lower curves that were used are based on secondary treatment. The red line includes nitrogen removal as required by Mass DEP. The warm weather conditions that favor the use of natural systems in the Mid-Atlantic states does not exist in Littleton, and that's another reason. Third reason is pretty significant. Massachusetts is an expensive place to build something. The state construction laws cause a premium to be paid for by the towns. And the last thing is that Mass DEP regulations are stringent, as they should be, but they impose a cost. So the cost you've been given that was fed into your financial model come from those lower curves. And we think that a better set of cost points would come from this report. Interestingly, when I was developing these curves for that task force, I contacted the University of West Virginia professor that was developing the other curves. I was trying to coordinate to make sure and I quickly realized that it wasn't information we could use because it didn't have the right climate. It was secondary treatment only. So major finding there. So who are we to say this? Oh, we just spent 2 weeks looking at your report. Well, Kevin gave our general qualifications, but you should know that as a firm, in the 1980s, how long ago was that? A long time ago. We established a specialty practice looking at innovative technologies. We wanted to be able to serve our clients, to be able to answer the question, hey, this sounds good, will it work? And so we have a long history of applying new technologies, but appropriately applying new technologies. I think that's the important thing. And we've become champions for certain innovations in waste management that I'll talk about. And with that expertise comes a lot of interesting assignments, third-party reviews, for example. I'm right now looking at a project in Westford, condominium association is thinking whether or not they should take over a privately developed membrane bioreactor with drip irrigation. So my expertise is being solicited to find out whether or not the risks and the costs have been fairly balanced there. And sometimes, unfortunately, those sorts of assignments turn out to be dispute resolution, the prevention of litigation or worse than that. So that experience has led to a document I have here, the small treatment plant guidelines that DEP will ask everyone to meet that has a groundwater discharge. We developed the original guidelines that evolved into this document. The national organization, the Water and Environment Federation, has published a manual on septic management, and several of my staff members are the lead authors in this document. We've also taken a shine to drip irrigation, drip dispersal, which we think has got great applicability in New England as well. Some of these expert assignments I think you should know about. In Harwich, a constructed wetland was built to treat septage. And DEP asked for a third-party reviewer, and Wright Pierce was selected to do that. Gave us a very good understanding of not only constructed wetlands, but how the sizing changes when you have high-strength waste like septage. Keith, I got a call from Sharon Lynn to help figure out who was responsible for that catastrophic vacuum sewer problem in Provincetown.
Yeah, who was
Fourth of July
responsible?
weekend.
Yeah, it was a
And-
golf ball.
Unfortunately, on the
right?
4th of July.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
timing.
it was in January.
Okay.
yeah, so that was an interesting one.
During the shakedown period that they had, it was, number one, I would never recommend a vacuum sewer anywhere, but it was like, it was a joint, it was an
Yeah.
elbow joint, and either golf ball or
Cell
cell
phone.
phone or something.
Yeah.
Shot right through it.
So those things are kind of fun. It wasn't fun for the people on the other side of the table, but I think I helped the town. The Cape Cod Commission has been championing some of these natural systems for wastewater management, and they asked me to take a look as an independent reviewer of their cost data that they've used in their 208 report. So all fun assignments, but it gives you a sense of where we're coming from when we make the comments we do about your project. So broad conclusions, I think your goals are all appropriate, commendable, right on. The aspects that we really like are using phasing to accommodate the uncertainties in buildup. Can't go wrong there. We think you're on the right track with aquifer recharge, and we've got some good concepts that we'd like to lay forward as ways that you could accomplish that. And we think, within reason, public-private partnerships can be very beneficial. There's some other aspects that I mentioned before that we don't support, and they have to do with the scale of the Littleton project. They might be fine concepts at a larger scale, but we don't think so at your scale. And some things that have worked in other parts of the country have worked because they're in other parts of the country. Not the March snowstorms that we have. So as a way forward, we've laid out a series of steps here that is the basis for our cost proposal, and you'll see it in detail in our non-price proposal. But we think that given what we think is the quality of the cost model, it would be good to bring the prior consultants back and try to use that model with some revised inputs. And again, we haven't had the opportunity to meet with the technical authors and find out what's behind the report, so please take that into consideration. But we think a reassessment is needed, and that would focus on the recycle streams I mentioned that I think are going to cause a problem, and the sizing of the technology, and the operation and maintenance costs and capital costs that are New England specific. So we think that our role would be to help you revisit those technical aspects, sizing, costing, application, and we think that the prior consultant would be the appropriate ones to run the model, because what we see we like. We'd hope the town would come up with a revised strategy and then figure out where to go. So it's sort of a step back from where you are, but I'd like to be in the third-party review category and not the dispute resolution category. So hard to say exactly where you might go, but two things I want you to think about. There's more than two, but two significantly sized private wastewater treatment facilities in town. And the owners, I don't think, ran forward and said, I want to be a treatment plant owner and operator. And I think you could strike a deal in terms of municipal takeover of those facilities, a purchase, in a way that would end up saving a lot of money over other alternatives. Not only in terms of the treatment facilities that exist, but the effluent disposal. And if you don't have a place to take the effluent, you don't have a project. So let's put into place a pretty aggressive search for sites and technologies. We think there's ways to re-rate those existing private disposal sites that would allow them to have significantly more capacity than the permits now say. And in some cases, it might take some minor capital improvements, but we've been successful doing that elsewhere. I just found in that Westford project that the leaching system has probably could take twice as much flow under good design as it now takes. So let's look at taking advantage of that. We like drip dispersal and we like wick disposal, the things that we think you should have on your plate. And I want to just take a minute and talk about wicks. I think you saw it in our proposal. We've used the term wick for a number of reasons, but picture a cylinder of crushed stone or gravel going deep into the ground, anywhere from 2 feet to 6 feet in diameter and as deep as necessary to conform with the geologic circumstances. What you do is, you don't just get wastewater flow at the bottom of this device, it goes out the sides as well. So you benefit both horizontal flow and vertical flow. And it's hard to say for sure, but in some cases, the footprint of these facilities is less than 5% of the footprint of a conventional leaching field. So when you think about finding a site for effluent disposal, boy, all of a sudden, those little squibs of land, that the cul-de-sac in the residential subdivision or the edge of the parking lot at the point, all of a sudden, you can start thinking about those. And under the right circumstances, the cost can be half what a leaching field is. Now, I keep saying the right circumstances, because these can't be used willy-nilly. This is a specialty, but what we see in Littleton, we like. 3 examples existing of this technology: West Island and Fairhaven. Keith, you probably know Jeff Osuch, who worked with us to do this. In this case, it's getting the wastewater through a dense layer of till to be able to access the gravel material below. On the right-hand side here is the Boston Golf, high-end golf course in Hingham, and it takes, there are 3 cylinders, which you see at the top, each of which can take 300,000 gallons a day. And I haven't talked to anybody yet who's been on hole 7 of that course and knew that there was a wastewater disposal facility there. We just finished one in Tisbury. That's the elementary school. Those 2 well casings sticking up through the ground are 2 wicks, and it's in the right-of-way of School Street and right next to the playground. So there's 70,000 gallon a day wicks in Fairhaven, 4 of them. There's 3 at 300,000 gallons a day in Hingham, and Tisbury. These 2 took clean water testing at 150,000 gallons a day. And from what we see from your geology, we think that these definitely need to be on the table.
So, thanks, Mike. So hopefully, we provided you guys with some additional thoughts and information, as compared to our written proposal. We understand that you've got 2 other consultants you're looking at, so why would you pick Wright Pierce? We hope and think that there's a lot of good reasons to do that. We think we're pretty good at some of the innovative technology, some of the smart sewering strategies. Again, we think you guys have a lot of great ideas on the table. I think it's a matter now of taking that half step back, figuring out what is the best path forward before you spend too much more time and money. So we think we can help you there. Again, we're familiar with working on these types of projects in this area. We're local. We think that has some value to the town. Our references, feel free to call them. I don't know, Chris, if you've done that yet or if you guys plan to do that, but please do. We would encourage you to do that. Obviously, they can be the judge, right? Skilled, as Mike just noted, in experience in third-party reviews to help make sure that our clients are going down the best technical and financial path for similar projects. And just closing with, it would be a high-priority project for us. We have other work, but we have the capacity to perform and jump right on it if you guys were to, choose Wright Pierce to work with you going forward. So again, thank you for the opportunity, and hopefully we've left enough time here for some
I
questions.
think we did. Good job.
And we'll be on a tight time frame, so that we're going to make sure that we ask all 3 of the candidates and the finalists the same list of questions. I think in order to get through that list, we may end up having to go rather quickly through them, and that the answers won't be able to be as long as
They've actually
the
addressed about
presentation.
half.
Yeah, I said.
We tried to partly do that to help out.
So it might sound redundant to you and everybody, like you said, it
Yeah,
is
Chris
what
will
it is.
ask it, and if it's been answered, you can say answered. and move on.
Or he can say answer, I think you've answered that one.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, we can start with the first one here.
Do we have extra copies, by the way? We do have a couple of people here. I mean, Keith, is that it?
I have.
Well, I don't want to circulate it for the curious back there.
Okay, so like I said, I know you've answered a lot of these, but
I could probably
kind of like a
put
quick
them on the screen.
recap for everybody. What are the challenges you foresee with this type of a project?
Well, you heard our assessment of the smart sewer strategy, and I think, in a nutshell, finding a way to make smart cost-effective, the intersection of cost and smart, meeting all the goals you have in a way that it costs a reasonable amount of money. That's got to be number 1. Number 2 is the finding of effluent disposal sites, recharge sites in the right watersheds and in the right technology.
Okay, so it's a 2-part question. What is the design philosophy of your firm? And again, I know you've answered the second part, but The 2012 study has come up with some interesting ideas and concepts for smart sewer system. What is your opinion of the study, and do you think the ideas are still appropriate?
This slide sort of answers the question in terms of what our approach is. And I think from our presentation, I hope you understood each one of those things. And it's time to step back, without a doubt.
Okay. What other smart sewer type projects has your firm most recently worked on?
There's a list of 10 in our proposal. I hope that you looked at all of them. We picked out just 2 or 3. The Orleans Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan we did had a balancing of phasing of the project, 6 phases, to try to balance against quite a large build-out potential, believe it or not, on the Cape. And cranking into the equation the fact that the Tri-Town septic facility is located in Orleans, and the revenue that could be available with a right treatment process could really reduce the user fees. So there's a key one. We also gave you some information about the work that at Otis Air Force Base, now called Joint Base Cape Cod. Our client is Mass Development. Most of our client meetings are just down the road. And Mass Development is considering a purchase and upgrading of the water and wastewater utilities at the base. So our charge was to develop a financial model to say, what would be a fair price to charge to Mashpee, say, to take Mashpee's wastewater, using the reserve capacity at the military place? What would be a fair thing to charge the town of Falmouth just for effluent disposal? Because their treatment plant's big enough, but they don't have disposal sites. What would the model look like if a regional septic facility could be there, and/or a food waste facility? So I think that's a really good example of all the things that need to come into play, and we have a dynamite cost model that allows those things to be evaluated, not just at where we hope the numbers might be, but where they might be in less favorable circumstances. So,
You can see a few others too there where we, some of our digester experience, some of our low-pressure sewer for, kind of innovative collection strategies. Tisbury, Mike already covered, with the wicks, a lot of different strategies. So again, I kind of went through that quickly because I knew this was going to be a question.
Yeah. Okay, so what is your firm's experience with anaerobic digestion, water reuse, thermogeneration, as well as electrical generation systems?
okay, in our proposal, you'll find specific pages that deal with each of those, but in a nutshell, anaerobic digestion has been around for a long time, and many of our municipal clients use it. And many have gone to thermal recovery, finding that the next step to go to electricity generation is at a smaller scale may not be worth the cost. So we've got we have experience in both, but thermal recovery we see as having greater promise. You're probably aware of the Greater Lawrence Sanitary District project, where digester gas is collected and used to in a drying process. The biosolids are pelletized, so the saleable product, and it's a linking of the digester gas, and instead of burning natural gas to dry the biosolids, the digester gas is used. Just finished a project, a very interesting one, at the Kariobangi treatment plant in Nairobi, where we've come up with an anaerobic treatment system, not anaerobic treatment of the sludge, but of the wastewater. Talk about regional issues here. What's the wastewater temperature in Littleton? What's the wastewater temperature in Nairobi? There's enough temperature, enough BTUs in the wastewater to be able to anaerobically attack that. And there's enough food waste available just from local vegetable markets, as well as the septage pumpers and the grease trap waste. So a fascinating project, and it would result in large enough, at 20 million gallons a day, it would result in the ability to generate electricity from that project.
Is that in Connecticut? I'm kidding.
No. It's not in the Mid-Atlantic states either.
Yeah, just south.
Yeah, we're involved in a fairly small anaerobic digester at the Brunswick Naval Air Station near our Topsom office that has the full suite of multiple waste streams coming in, thermal recovery to heat the digester, and a sale of electricity to the industrial clients in this Naval Air Station remake into a industrial park.
The molybdenum standards in Massachusetts, DEP has just revised them, and now has the same standards as EPA, which means that mixing wastewater organics and food waste to generate energy is now a real possibility
Yep.
here.
Yep.
Whereas before, you were gonna need 2 separate digesters.
Yep.
Okay, what is your firm's experience dealing with permitting authorities for wastewater treatment facilities?
Significant, and you can look down this slide here too. I mentioned that obviously we've got a good working relationship with DEP, and of course Mike mentioned some southeastern Mass, Brian Dudley locations, but your region as well, Worcester with Dave Boyer. Westford, we did the groundwater discharge permit, did one down in Mashpee. A couple of years ago, we did Avalon, Cohasset, Tisbury, Yarmouth, Oak Bluff, so East Bridgewater, so quite a lengthy list. So we've done a lot of that in the various regions. And we actually also have had, Mike in particular has been asked by DEP to help, when they actually separated the groundwater discharge permitting process. A few years ago, it used to all be together, the hydrogeological effort as well as the engineering report and the application. They said, wait a minute, let's pull that apart and do the hydrogeo first. Mike actually helped, Alan Slater and DEP Boston helped rewrite those regs. So
We do a fair amount of pro bono work in general, but we've regularly participated in DEP or EOEA task force related to the reuse effluent
Yep.
reuse documents,
Yep.
the small treatment plant guidelines, the use of natural systems for wastewater treatment. It's not money-making in terms of no billable time, but it's very rewarding. And as a result, we get phone calls from DEP about asking input on projects that aren't our projects, sort of behind the scenes, what do you think about this and what do you think about that? And great relationship.
So in short, Chris, well-versed.
Okay, this is actually a 3-part question. Are you familiar with various funding programs in the state for wastewater as it relate to the communities? And what has been your experience in working with these funding agencies? And has your firm assisted communities with grant writing and the application process for such funding?
Yes, and I actually pulled this slide up as well, just to kind of assist along. So, yes, we've worked with a lot of our clients on a lot of wastewater and water projects. Grant writing, and again, you guys can see the list there. I know you guys have had some success with MassWorks yourself, but we're doing a 0% SRF loan right now for Middleborough on their wastewater upgrade. We did a 0% SRF loan with Leominster on their wastewater treatment plant upgrade. I've done Haverhill as an upgrade. We're upgrading Gardner, Mass's wastewater, all SRF loan-funded projects. So we were involved in helping them, write the PEF, submit it, get it on the IUP, the intended use plan, and then do the app and all. So yes to that. I've got 2 projects right now, one in Westminster. It's a collection system project where they have USDA Rural Development grant and loan. So we helped, write the application and do the engineering report, the environmental report, and they were able to get a 20% grant and a low-interest loan. Hardwick, Mass, we're actually upgrading one of their treatment plants, a small plant, as well, and they're getting a 30% grant. So again, I won't go down the full list, but quite a bit of experience. And then also some different ones too. DEP recently has got asset management grants. They're smaller numbers, but we've been able to help Haverhill get a grant. Lexington just got one. We're working with the town of Hudson right now, looking at all their wastewater pump stations. So hopefully that answered it, Chris.
It does,
Okay.
yes.
One bit of elaboration, if you could get a 0% SRF loan versus a 2%, it's equivalent to, depending on the discount rate, between a 20 or 25% grant. So you want to go after that hard. And in my work with the Cape Cod Commission, I helped them write some of the rules that now apply statewide on how you get that 0%. Specifically, the issue of, is your program flow neutral? It used to be called growth neutral. In other words, is this bonus money going to be used just to create growth? Going to be a hard question to answer here, but there's some ways to do it, like finding using the case that it's net neutral. There may be some areas where flow is promoted, but other areas with revised zoning, which you've accomplished, it accounts for that. So that's, all of these things are important, but let's go for 0%.
Yeah, and there's 5 criteria. Mike listed one of them, and we would really, if you chose right, Pierce, we'd like to sit down and talk to you about, whether there is a chance, because it can make a pretty big difference going from 2 to 0, as you guys know.
Are you familiar with Mass Clean Energy Center grant process and gaining grants for planning and construction?
We are, maybe to a lesser extent to the list I just explained, but yeah, we are familiar with that as well.
And we've been involved in getting a pilot digester put up at the New Bedford landfill for a company that runs the landfill gas collection and reuse process there, and that funding has gone there.
Because we see an upfront grant from them for planning is sort of essential
Yep.
to reducing the cost upfront and, getting to go with this project.
Yep, we have some familiarity with that program as well as, some of the other ones through DOER. We've been able to work with the electric utilities and get some energy incentives. That may not be totally applicable since you don't have the facilities existing, but nonetheless, I think we have that experience that we can help guide you through and make you successful with that.
Okay. Like I said, I know you've answered this question, but who specifically will be assigned to this project?
Us too, Ed Leonard, as you saw. Again, that's our recommendation in terms of the initial approach, but then we would certainly, pull others in as needed going forward, whether it's hydrogeological expertise, soil evaluation, again, for that, finding where that effluent disposal or reuse site is. And then if things move to preliminary design, finally, then we start to pull in all those in-house
But
engineering
the next
services.
step we propose, you don't want junior people working on it.
Correct.
And I challenge you, when you make the phone calls to the 10 references we've given you, ask the question, did you get enough senior time? And more than half of those projects have had 25 or 30% of the hours on the project have been mine. And we're structured as a firm to be able to pick key projects that further the objectives of sustainability and energy management and carbon footprint. We pick those, and those fall in my court. And I then have the flexibility to do a large amount of involvement in projects like that, and this would be one of them.
Again, I
Can
know,
I just ask you further? It sounds as if you think that sustainability and the environment and restoration is a key element in approaching projects for you and for the firm?
Oh, absolutely. How could it not be?
Absolutely.
Right. If you don't get the right answer to that question from a firm, that should be
Yep.
the end of the conversation.
I agree with that, but you'd be surprised.
Yeah, no, that's a good question.
again, I know you answered this question, but how much of the work on this project would you be subcontracting out? And if you are, who would it be to?
Well, again, it would be none to start. And then working forward, for an example, and I know I touched on it briefly before, looking at, let's say you have an effluent disposal site, whether it's a WIC or a subsurface or drip or whatever. Depends on what level of sophistication the hydrogeological analysis needs to be. So we would pull in, a firm that we've used up in Concord, New Hampshire, perhaps to help us with some dynamic modeling if need be. If we needed to do survey, we do survey in-house, but this is probably a large enough scale project where we probably sub out. We've used Hancock Associates, they're probably a familiar name. We've used a number of other different local, we've using Lighthouse Survey. They just did some survey on a project in Lexington and Hudson for us. So we have a number of different vendors. Chuck Karen, small company out of Westminster, is really good wetlands, cost effective but really good quality wetlands scientist. So we might use him to do the delineation and help with notice of intent filing, with Concom. So again, going forward, we might pull some in and some names of firms that we've worked with.
Okay.
And one of the logical firms you might expect us to subcontract to would be in the area of financial planning and rate modeling. We do that pretty much ourselves, and I'd have you look at that work we did for mass development at Joint Base Cape Cod. But under some circumstances, there are some really high-level people. And again, I don't know personally the fellow that did the work for you before, but the results look like it's a really nice model.
Okay, and you kind of just answered
I
it,
was going to
but.
say, good segue.
Exactly.
Oh,
What
is there
is your-
another question, Chris?
What is your experience with economic feasibility and financing?
You just answered that.
Just answered.
We could elaborate if you'd like.
No, it's fine. Like I said, I just wanted to make sure we did ask the
Bases
question.
covered, yeah.
Have you done any design, build, operate projects?
Yeah,
That's a good question.
we've been on teams that have done that. Philosophically, as a firm, we made the choice not to get heavily involved in the operational side. because our clients often will rely upon us to instruct their staff, if it should be a town staff project. We and are often in a position of having to solve problems where sometimes you have to look at the operations as well as the design and the construction. We did some very large projects nationally in the area of biosolids management, sludge composting, and I personally have I think a healthy skepticism about what the savings really are in a privately developed facility. Doesn't mean that you definitely should be exploring that option, but when you look at all the costs and all the risks, and you look at the operability and lifespan of a privately developed facility, unless you make it clear from the beginning that that's important, privately you're going to see a facility that lasts 15 years and not 20 or 25, and you're going to see operation and maintenance costs that are higher than were predicted. Not to say that there aren't good solutions there, but you need to go in with your eyes open. And the way we're structured as a firm, without having the operational stance and not being in a position to own facilities, I think we can advise you independently on that.
So you're familiar and prefer sort of a design-build approach where the community then takes over the operation?
Not necessarily, but
Yeah.
let me say this. If I were to recommend that a private firm take on the operations, I'm going to want some checkpoints to make sure that there's a fair sharing of costs if some of the operation and maintenance costs are related to lack of maintenance.
Right.
One of my
Sort of like the
earlier-
private prison problem.
Exactly. If you look at risks and rewards, this is an issue of balancing the risks.
Yeah.
And if you're going to go into a design-build project, you better have your own engineer take the design to the point where you could identify what the risks are. Because we've been on design-build teams as the engineer, and with the bid coming up and the contractor saying, well, you know, I can't pay you to design that, let's throw in $100,000 to cover it. If any, you can be sure that $100,000 is more than enough. Why not spend $10,000 and figure out what the real issues are, so the
Right.
contractor only carries $15,000? It's that balancing of risks that is the kind of the Achilles heel, I think, of the current design, build, operate. So go in with your eyes open.
I would add to that real quickly. You know, as Mike said, you know, we try to focus on doing the best engineering work we can. The operations world is a little bit different. But we do have on staff, we have some engineers that also have some pretty good capabilities from an operations standpoint. So we're able to, you know, if we've planned and designed and helped build those facilities, we can provide follow-on operation troubleshooting services and that guidance that Mike had mentioned. So we do have some of that talent on staff as well.
Okay. Well,
Do we have enough time for one more question?
No,
we actually don't.
None?
no,
Okay.
we're limited to the list of questions we have.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I think this is in order, though. Is there anything that was unclear in our RFP or anything that you want to ask of us, which I promised to ask of the other two applicants
Yeah,
too, Keith?
I'm writing it. I'll write that one down too, along with design build.
I'm going to say not for me, and I don't know, Mike, if, you know, you can answer that on your own.
Well, I always like to know more about who the client would be. You know, who's going to run this?
We don't
What
know
extent
that
is
yet.
it? I'm sorry?
We don't know who's
don't
going to
know.
run it yet.
No, I don't run a facility, I mean run the project.
Yeah, I get it.
Who does Kevin call? How often do you need to meet with the Board of Selectmen versus the wastewater committee? Those sorts of procedural things can make or break a project, so, and you may not be there yet, but that's a question we want to have answered.
Those are
Yeah.
good concerns to be raised, though, how the town organizes the project interface with the
And
consultant.
from a bigger picture standpoint, too, there was some chatter before we started, too, about what is the current, you know, I did sit in on some meetings a few years ago, and what is the current feeling of the property owners that would be directly affected, you know, whether they're residential, commercial, whatever, and maybe there's some sitting right here in the audience. What is the current level of thinking in terms of support or not? So again, a kind of a bigger picture thing that will play itself out.
All right, well,
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming out,
Okay.
taking the time to
Appreciate
talk
it,
with
guys.
us, answering our questions, and
Take the rest of the day off if you want.
I
We'll
wish.
try and shut down quickly here. I know you guys are.
Thank you very
Do we have a copy
Thanks,
of that PowerPoint, Keith?
Yes.
Yeah, we do, okay.
Yes.
We will.
We will.
So why don't we'll take
is that it?
5.
Thank you.
Terrific, thank
You guys want any extra copies I can leave behind?
Might as well.
Oh, yeah, right over here.
Forget her. And I'll leave this file here with you.
Great, thank you.
I'm gonna try and shut down quickly.
Yeah, good to see you. Yeah. And think about an hour and a half interview next time.
As long as you remind me to throw it back on.
Yeah, we will. I'll write it down.
All right, for the audience, we're gonna throw the switch here until our next applicants are up.
back on the air.
Okay, preparing for our second interview with the respondent for the smart sewer proposal, Weston and Sampson. Good evening, welcome. I'm Paul Glavy from the Board of Selectmen. We also have the Vice Chair of the Board of Selectmen, Chuck DeCoste, over there in the yellow shirt. The Chair of the Selectmen, Melissa Hebert, as well as Bob Zimmerman, who headed up the study or conducted the study process that resulted in our 2012 sewer study. He's professionally the Executive Director of the Charles River Watershed Association and has served as Chairman of the Littleton Board of Health. And from here on out, our town engineer and DPW Director, Chris Stoddard, will conduct the process. And you all also know our town administrator, Keith Bergman, who is here as well. And with that, I'll say, Chris.
Okay, so Weston, thank you guys for coming out, taking the time, to talk with us. How this is going to work for everybody in the audience. We're going to do 20, 25 minutes of a presentation, and then we have a series of questions we're going to ask you, and that's pretty much it. So with that, I'll give you the floor, and like I said, thank you for coming out.
Well, we appreciate being here tonight.
You get to look at either one.
I have this weird thing where I like to stand when I talk, so we may sit, we may stand. So if I make you uncomfortable, just tell me and I'll force myself to sit down. So, good job. We already covered introductions. I want to talk a little bit today about our Weston Sampson team, maybe some things that we do as a firm, a lot about our experience with smart sewer principals, because this is a really unique job, and it has some great things, pieces that we're really interested in, and a lot of those things are things we've been doing already, and we're really eager to get another opportunity to do some of those aspects, and a really good opportunity to do a lot of them welded together, which is a really neat opportunity. And then we want to talk a little bit about your approach. And we want to try to do that real fast, because we also want to leave time for your questions and do a lot of things. So I'd love to slow the pace down and say that we could kind of be relaxed, but I'm not very relaxed, because we have a lot of things we really want to get across to you. Really excited about the project because of our experience. Really excited about the project because we have a great project team. Some of us, Steve and I notably, have been working together for multiple decades, and we've done a lot of different types of projects. Corey has only been almost 2 decades at this point, right? Somewhere between 1 and 2 decades. Other folks that aren't with us tonight, Blake Martin, who's a pretty key aspect of our team, leads our hydrogeo and environmental science group, who helps us enforce a lot of these things and do the things that are very different that old-fashioned engineering firms used to not do, and helps make us a little different. Franny Niskewitz, who some of you may know, who's been around the industry for like almost 50 years, 40-something years. And Fran is one of our folks who knows the most about municipal finance, has been part of all the WIFC discussions at the state level, has served as an advisor to a lot of the trusts on aspects of things, and the state really understands those. And then we have one key sub-consultant, which is Green International Affiliates, who has some first-hand experience working for the town and knows the town well and brings some aspects of that, as well as they're a firm who we've done quite a bit of sub-consulting. They've worked for us on a number of projects as well. So we had a good relationship with them, and we thought they would help enhance our team. We also have countless other folks back at our office. Weston and Sampson is a little different firm. Some folks like Bob, you've been around the industry a long time. We don't look much like what we did a long time ago. When Steve and I started with the firm, we were about 25 people. We're now about 475 people. We're a Massachusetts firm. We're based here. We're owned here. This is where we are. This is where we're committed to being. We're a firm that's been around pretty much in our current incarnation for almost 120 years at this point, and we've gotten to do different things every time we've done that. So it's a really interesting opportunity to take a firm like that and use it to both be an old firm, but also a new firm, a firm that innovates and does really interesting things and plays in the games that we play now. We're a little different from other firms in another way, which is we actually have 3 parts to our firm. We have an engineering firm, which is engineering, science, architecture, landscape architecture, and a few other little side projects that we like to do. We actually have a construction wing that builds projects, very similar projects to what you're talking about and what some of your users that you envision have for plants. And then we have an operations group that actually physically operates a lot of those types of plants. Everything from individual home systems up to very large systems. And I think we operate maybe two systems in the town right now. So, big picture for us. One of the big things we think of when we think of smart sewering is the ultimate concept of sustainability and what sustainability means to everybody. And I think sustainability can mean a lot of different things. I actually am on the steering committee for the Water Environment Federation for the program committee, and I usually lead discussions of both financial aspects and sustainability aspects. And over the past years, I've gotten a chance to do those as well as project delivery methods and a lot of other fun things. And I always like to think of sustainability as both a financial sustainability and environmental sustainability, and obviously the social aspects that weave those together. We've had an opportunity to do some really neat projects. One project that I have a couple of pictures of in here that was a really nice thing that we did. We got an opportunity to do a project where we had very little space to upgrade a wastewater treatment facility that was really in need of modernization. There was a contaminated site next door. There was a real need to deal with resiliency because of changes in the floodplain work. And we had a client that was very interested in energy efficiency, renewable energy, and sustainability. And so we actually met at our office and had what we call a lead charrette early on to see if we would be interested in advancing lead principles, leadership in energy and environmental design. And we did. We picked it. We said we'd go with the project, and we set a goal of getting basic lead certification for the project. The picture on the far right here is neat because it looks down the path that at the end of the day we ended up with a really nice accessible area to get from downtown out to the water. Previously that was a contaminated site surrounded by fences with a couple of old dilapidated buildings on it, and if you walked on it you would take your life in your hands. And now it's an accessible site with an inviting way to get back to the plant. And as you go down that site, you pass our LEED certified building, which eventually, from our original goals, made it to LEED Gold certification. Very unusual for a wastewater treatment facility, particularly in this region, where folks don't want to buy into anything. In addition, our teammate, Green International, to do one better, did a LEED Platinum building for the Mass Fish and Wildlife Field Headquarters. It's out in Westboro, and it's a really neat building. Again, talk about those projects all night if we could, but we won't. Steve is going to talk a little bit about collections.
Yes, thank you, Ken. So collection systems, Ken talked about all the things we do, all the wonderful things that Weston Sampson does. Collection systems are at the heart of what we do. I don't know if anybody's designed more miles of pipeline than we have. From small communities to large communities, it runs the gamut. Basically what we do is we provide the analysis that our clients need to make the decision that works for them in terms of what's the appropriate collection system for them. So you can see on the on the bullets here, obviously we've done gravity systems, but we've also done a great deal of small diameter systems, which is going to be more pertinent to what you're looking for in this community and the type of sewering project that you're talking about here. That next bullet, step and steg systems in the Northeast, there aren't a great deal of them. I can't imagine anyone has more experience than us in terms of step and steg systems in the Northeast. We were the design engineers on the Gloucester project, which is the largest step system in New England. It's over 100.
Several hundred.
Several hundred.
Yeah.
Stand corrected. Several hundred connected to that project. And I look at this list here. Another one that jumps out at me is Cape Cod Community College, another step project. And that's one actually where we worked with Green International, just another example of a project where we worked with Green. But you can see the list here of the different systems that we've done, and there are many more that we haven't listed here.
So with sewer design often comes the opportunity for treatment, and as a specialized firm, we've had the opportunity to design, build, and operate many wastewater treatment facilities, some which have very innovative technologies to them for small communities and large projects as well. One of the projects that fits some of the needs in Littleton is the Ashfield project, which we did approximately 20 years ago. It is a solar aquatic technology with subsurface wetland treatment. That design that we did over 20 years ago is still being replicated, and it's actually in use at a facility that we operate in Ipswich at New England Biolabs. So with that design, build, and operations facets of our
business, we get the opportunity to work with our operators to further refine our designs. And one of the more innovative technologies that people are going to now is membrane treatment, which we also have experience with in order to achieve high-quality effluent. The picture that you see there is a membrane rack for a treatment facility that we did in southeastern Massachusetts for the 80 Makepeace client. It's the Red Brook development that you may see some advertisements for. That right there is the membrane system for the 100,000 gallon per day treatment facility, which will ultimately be able to reach a capacity of 395,000 gallons per day. We're actively working with the client on the modularity issues related to that and looking to further modularize the system so that they can achieve capital savings as development progresses, so that they're not outlaying a significant capital cost as homes aren't yet developed. And that's the open sand beds for the field itself. So with high-quality effluent often comes the opportunity for reuse. And as a firm, Weston & Sampson has experience with reclaimed water and water reuse. Some of the projects that I'd like to point out on that list are the Newburyport wastewater treatment facility, which Kent talked about, and the Lexington DPW, where we're harvesting stormwater for reuse for both irrigation purposes and for vehicle washing, as you can see in the picture on the right. Additionally, as a firm, we've worked on a public-private partnership project in Peabody where we utilized reclaimed groundwater from an industrial facility to irrigate a local golf course in the area. So we do have experience with that. And the picture on the left is purple pipe installation. We've worked in Naples, Florida on the design and installation of miles of purple pipeline for wastewater effluent reuse.
So the flip side of the effluent is the solids and how we deal with them. And one of the neat aspects of your smart sewering report was to focus a little bit on what we call organics to energy. We've been involved in this initiative in the state for a lot of different clients ever since the state law changed and required commercial and institutional folks to basically separate their organics that were compostable and actually find a way to get those to a location where they could be repurposed and put into essentially recycling. The vision is that those could be used to generate energy if you put them in a digester. And so we've actually been working with a couple of clients, completely grant-funded projects, to implement those types of projects. Massachusetts CEC has had an ongoing grant program. We've tapped quite a bit of funds for those clients in the past, and we continue to do that. I think right now the two we're probably most active on is one project for Fitchburg and another project for Plymouth, Mass. But the neat thing about digesters is you can get a lot of things from them. You can get heat, you can get electricity, you can get tipping fees for people bringing you waste, both septage, sewage sludge. You can get it from organics, and usually there's some other substrates you can get there too. And a big part of digesters is understanding how the market for that fits in with your development costs. Another big part of digesters is knowing how to build them and get them to work. And so the picture on the right is actually a project that we put in. It was mostly, almost entirely funded with rural development funds. It's actually a combined agricultural and commercial waste digester system up in Maine, and we did the design turnkey, and I think it's going to be the format for an upcoming design in Massachusetts for another digester process as well. One of the benefits of having done real experience on digester projects, and we've got a lot more digesters we've worked on than those couple I mentioned, but the benefits are we know what the components are like, we know how to size them, we know what the process train looks like. We've actually generated relatively detailed drawings for a lot of our evaluations when most folks use schematics that come out of a book somewhere. And I think the benefit of this is that we can actually think through the challenges for an individual project and not just focus on kind of big picture thematic equations. Even if you do digestion and you do great treatment, you still end up with some biosolids at the end that you need to get rid of. And the goal, and I think one of the ideas that was highlighted in your report, was the idea to make sure that that can be beneficially reused at the end of the project. And so we're involved in that a lot. The two projects that I think I've got highlighted here on the left is some sludge that we were preserving in the way the wastewater treatment facility was designed, even though the permit changed, trying to preserve the wastewater treatment facility so that that sludge could be composted. That sludge on the left is just before it goes to composting at a private facility in Ipswich. Correct. The one on the right is a plant that we just finished a CWMP for, and our whole process design is to meet very low effluent limits, but also preserve the fact that that is an almost pristine sludge that they produce on their site through composting, and they pay zero for trucking away sludge, because the sludge is of such good, the composted sludge material is of such good quality and such consistency, it looks like coffee grounds in your hands, that they can't keep it in stock. People come and take it away and use it as a soil amendment. It's a beautiful product. And it's very seldom that you can do that. Most of the time you have to pay tipping fees for that. So the thought process is absolutely real, what you've identified in your report. The challenge is, it's not easy to do. It requires significant thought.
So once you are at the point where you have treated wastewater, you've got to get rid of it, and as a firm, Weston & Sampson has a large portion of the work that we do is related to groundwater discharge and hydrogeologic analysis to plan for discharges, select sites, and allow the groundwater discharge to recharge the various subbasins. Some of the areas we've worked in are Bourne, most recently Plymouth, 80 Makepeace, even other state departments as well for DCR and Mass DEP. Since we do a lot of this work directly in-house, we have specialized tools in-house that we use to assess the groundwater conditions and the environmental impacts, looking at things like groundwater modeling, nutrient fate, and the like. And some of our hydrogeologists actually are PhD level employees. So we do all that in-house, and it is a significant part of our work that we do.
So one of the key aspects of trying to do things smart is to look at alternative delivery methods. And this is something I've been involved in most of my career as we look at different ways to deliver projects. Did I skip one, Steve? Oh, sorry. Renewable energy. Forgot about renewable energy and energy recovery. So this is something that one of the differences with Weston Sampson from a lot of other firms is we've been in this since the energy business started to come about from the high cost of energy in New England. And we've had the opportunity to serve in a great number of different roles for these projects, including working for the owners as a rep, as an engineer, as a designer, building municipal projects and institutional projects, but also as a developer and as a designer. My little bullet point up there is a pretty good one. We've actually had the opportunity to be involved in over 80 energy development projects which generate over 120 megawatts of power from renewable sources. Pretty impressive numbers, ranging everywhere from a little 3 kW facility that we did for a small site up to something on the order of 6 megawatts, which is one of the biggest ones in Massachusetts. That means we've had the ability to have experience with both electric and thermal, but primarily those are electric. The benefit of that experience is we know a lot about the alternative delivery methodologies you're allowed to use under Chapter 25A for delivery. We also understand the market for credits. We understand the market for energy under net metering priorities, although since you have your own electric department, that needs to be looked at a little specially in Littleton. You don't have the same aspects available that you have in other communities. But the combination of the RECs for the electric energy and the potential alternative energy credits, if you can generate thermal energy, are very promising. And I think they become a big part of your pro forma planning for a project like this. We've had a chance to do some really neat things on a lot of different scales. We're doing some big geothermal work with facilities. We've done process thermal recovery from digesters, but also other processes, solar thermal, and then just general heat recovery. Some really neat projects, and I'll love a chance to talk about those, but limited time today. Again, as I said, delivery is a big part of that. In addition to the 25A, we've had the opportunity to do all the different delivery methods. One of the things I like about alternative delivery methods, design, build, operate, and design, build, operate with some financing capabilities is it gives you a chance to turn a project around and look at what is the best way to actually deliver it. Gives you a lot of opportunities to think about these. Notwithstanding Massachusetts regulations and practices in the industry and how ownership of property comes into play, you do have the opportunity to use these, but you have to understand the processes fairly well to do this. And in Massachusetts, we've done all manner of projects this way, and frankly, across the country, through our regions. The one project I'm just finishing up right now, we're on a call today for a wastewater treatment facility project that we did design, build, operate. They were in the process of negotiating a change for this plant that was going to meet a new permit criteria that was going to be the lowest effluent limits for nitrogen and phosphorus in the region. It was going to cost them $50 million. We're just closing out the project now. We had reduced the budget when we came on for the design, build, operate approach to a $44 million budget, and we're going to end up being several $1 million under budget, including we signed change orders to reduce the cost of the project without reducing the effluent quality after we signed a contract with the deliverer, and the project includes a 20-year operations contract. So very impressive. Like I said, we just did the final call with the design, build, operate firm today. We're the owner's representative for the project. You can deliver these projects. You can save money. The key is understanding some of the nooks and crannies of that delivery method. It can be tricky. Steve will talk a little bit about funding.
So this is me. A little is the key word. My job was to gauge progress. So I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit. And I'm going to let some of these...
You're doing fine.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
good. There's
yeah.
quite a few slides left.
Okay.
Some of these will speak for themselves. You'll see as I move through them that, and we can address some of these in questions and discussion. But permitting, the permits you see up here, this is just in the state of Massachusetts. These are all permits that we have a great deal of experience with, from loan programs, SRF loan program, right through all the grant, some other grant programs. Basically, we help our clients secure funding from all these sources. Every project is unique, and what we do is we help our client match their project with the right funding source. And one that jumps out on me here is the newly picked grant we just worked with the town of East Bridgewater. Somewhat similar to you, they're probably a little further in the process. They built a new high school within the last 5 years, and when they built the high school, they built a treatment plant, and as part of it, they had some foresight that they built in additional capacity for potentially extending some sewers into the town center area. This high school happened to be right in the center of town.
Working with groundwater discharge sites that we developed under our comprehensive wastewater management plan
Excellent point.
before that project.
So we tapped into a grant recently to help them do some additional study, and now they've used that study to where we're actually doing a small sewer extension out onto Route 18, the main route through the center of town, to help their economic development in that area. Financing, it kind of runs the gamut as far as how you're going to pay for the system or how you're going to build it. We talk about public-private partnerships or private contributions. Are there any existing private systems out there that you may be able to tap into for your system, or any even just components that have already been built by developers or will be built by developers, as well as private financial contributions, commitments. Commitment from property owners to be serviced, that's a challenging thing. You got to figure out, you got to get the word out there, find out who's in. Obviously, pro forma approach, system development. This is about spreading the costs out and making sure that you're going to collect money over time. You're not going to hit the phase one people for all the major costs. It's about a modular system or a system that's going to be built out over time so you can collect money over time and spread the cost out. So these are just, so I talked about public-private partnership, P3 alternatives. You can take a look at this, although unfortunately on your slide it's kind of tough to see, so look it up on the screen. It just runs, basically takes you through a shifting risk and control from option A being all a municipal project all the way to option E being a private sector project, and then the different categories along the way and how the risk and control, because those are the two things, that start shifting on you as you try and merge the public and the private to make these projects happen.
This is actually some slides from a presentation we've put together for the town of Bourne for a very similar planning project like we have, a decentralization project for their wastewater system downtown today.
I talked about getting the word out. Public outreach is critical. Being transparent, keeping people informed, whether it be newsletters, newspaper ads, and one of the biggest things is public presentations. I look at the one kind of in the middle there, and that hits home with me. That's actually Wednesday night of this week. That's out on Nantucket. We did a presentation. So Nantucket's a little different. They already have a treatment plant and a collection system within town, and they're looking to do some extensions into some other neighborhoods. And a big part of this meeting was explaining to people that the best solution for them is small diameter sewers to connect into the existing system to get over to the treatment plant. So
Trying to
that's,
see if my daughter's in the audience.
oh,
She's already hooked up to the sewer, though.
Yeah, she probably didn't go.
Surfside. Well, I'm surprised you got over because the boat's been canceled.
I
Steve almost didn't make it back.
I got over no problem.
Yeah, been
Tuesday
getting
was a
updates
beautiful day.
every
Yeah.
few hours. Yeah.
Actually, it was Tuesday night, I said Wednesday.
Monday, we were out there
The presentation was
Tuesday,
night.
Monday and Wednesday were both cancellation days, yeah.
Because we also did the same presentation for the Rotary Club on Wednesday, or I did, so then I had to come back on Wednesday, yeah. So project approach, more specific to you, I mean, this, this kind of aligns with the scope that you guys, that's in the RFP that was put out. I don't need to go into a lot of detail on this, but, we've got there's a process that has to be followed, and there's some critical steps along the way, from, starting with refining the service area, figuring out which properties are going to be part of it, confirming the flows and loads. That's where we start talking about the phasing of the system, and looking at the quirk. I mean, this is all stuff, it all builds down to where we have the Phase 1 report to try and talk about where we're at. And then Phase 2 gets more into, okay, we've vetted out, we hopefully have a site. We actually have to prove out the hydro-geo at the site that we're looking to move forward with, and start doing some actual preliminary design of the system components. We've already identified the type of treatment process. Now we got to start doing some layout, as well as what type of collection and transmission systems we're going to deal with. And then we start looking at applying for the groundwater discharge permit, looking at the implementation plan, and all this is going on. You kind of refining the finance plan as you're figuring out the costs and the layout of the system, and continuing with the public outreach. A couple of the key challenges that we see right now, the groundwater discharge and facility siting. If you don't have a site, you don't have a project, so you need to find a site. And I know that there have been quite a few sites looked at, but that's going to need to get narrowed down, and it's hard to move too far forward and then find out we went all this way and we don't have a site. So that's one of the biggest challenges. And then also the financing and affordability, getting the word out and convincing people that not only is it the right thing to do, but it's affordable, and getting everybody on board are two of the key project challenges that we see.
All right, so the wrap, so we think that we're the right firm to help you advance your project, and we think there's some reasons why. I'd love to have 2 hours to explain to you some of the great things we've done and all the details, but, so we try to boil this down into 5 bullets, and it's a little bit challenging, but we have direct local experience with smart sewering approaches. It's not just theoretical for us. We have hands-on, real work. We have projects that have been built. We understand all the laws, all the market conditions that go into those things. We're very good at helping our clients take expertise and convert that into real projects. We have extensive and specialized expertise with groundwater discharge permitting. Unlike a lot of firms, that's all done in-house with us. As Corey said, we have PhDs in our office. We have folks who, that's all they do is hydro-geo. They're specialized at this. They've developed some incredible map-based tools to be able to find these sites and prove it out. We get hired as an expert on a lot of this because we have such good expertise in-house. We have an incredibly strong rapport with DEP and the permitting folks. Our demonstrated experience really comes into play when you need to get from planning to implementation. And the fact that we have such a broad base of capabilities in our office gives us the ability to help clients do that. In particular, if you're trying to implement sustainable projects, where there tends to be a lot of misunderstanding of what those projects are, and public perception comes into play, and a lot of people become naysayers, we find that having someone who has been on both sides, been pragmatic and been visionary at the same time, becomes really huge. And I really pride, at least our team, on our ability to do that, to integrate innovation with practicality. It can be a real challenge to do it. And, it's a key part of, I think, what you need to do to be able to move a project forward, based on your original vision, to try to stick as much as you can with that. And then lastly, we have a commitment to providing clients with good advice. And we understand that the decisions are yours. What we do is we give you the tools. As a consultant, that's all we can do. We'll give you good advice. will allow you to make the best decision-making for your project. So with that, I appreciate you having us here tonight, and we would love to field your questions.
Okay, well, thank you. Fantastic presentation. The questions, you've answered most of them, so you don't necessarily have to answer them in great detail. You can just do with it what you wish.
So I want to make one comment, Chris, which was, I actually had most of these, all of these items in the presentation before I got the questions.
Oh, okay.
So I like the fact that we were thinking alike. I feel good about that.
There you go.
Obviously, we tweaked a few of them, and we didn't actually answer all of them, so.
Yeah. Okay, so what challenges do you foresee with this type of a project?
So Steve started on this. We talked about two key ones. The biggest one that we find a lot of projects happen, which is eventually, no matter what you do, even maximum reuse, you will have water to dispose of that's when you're done creating effluent from your treatment process. So groundwater discharge is a key. I don't think that's a huge challenge because you have, and the report goes into this, you have a lot of areas already within your site that already treat and dispose of on their sites. And some of them are big Title V systems, and some of them are treatment systems and have fairly large groundwater discharge permits associated with them. But it is always a challenge to get to that site. And the siting issue is both treatment, because treatment can have a stigma to it, even if it's a quirk and it's really green and all that stuff. If you do digestion, there's some other aspects of, you gotta truck some things in there too. So there's a lot to think about in siting, and to really understand how that affects both the people who are living and driving through the area and working there, as well as the real-world issues of ownership and access and all those other things that happen. The second one is obviously affordability and financing. These projects are tricky. As Steve said, the challenge is when you do a project to be real visionary, a lot of times, and you only want to let people connect as they're ready to go, the first people in get hammered with some unaffordable costs. So balancing the best use of any municipal contributions with how to get the maximum contribution from private properties, it's a real art. And we've been through that on a lot of projects, and it takes a lot of effort. We actually have specialized members of our team that look just at that.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so this next one is a two-part question. What is the design philosophy of your firm? And the 2012 study has come up with some interesting ideas and concepts for the smart sewering system. What is your opinion of the study, and do you think the ideas are still appropriate?
So I tried to touch on this a little bit. The business has changed a lot since I started in it. The old-fashioned way was we just built big pipes everywhere. We actually oversized a lot of the pipes, and we just put them in. And it was cheap to do because the feds paid 90% of it, and you could run them miles and miles, and run them through wetlands and get them to the biggest plant you could do. You can't do those anymore. One of the things I was refreshed about that's in the report was you recognize the idea that you actually expend energy to move water over basin boundaries, and you don't realize it's always happening. But we've been doing this related planning for over 10 years at this point in time. We actually did the comprehensive wastewater management planning for the town of Concord, and when no one else in the state was doing their comprehensive planning and thinking on a sub-basin level, we were already doing that with the town. And we felt really good about that. And even though there's been some migration away from that for various things that they've done, that mentality has been refreshing to see come more and more into play in the state. So we've always had a vision that ultimately sustainability is something that has to come into play, whether a certain client wants to do it or not. It's more about, can you make sustainability really work? As I said, sustainability has to have a financial sustainability component to balance the environmental sustainability component. Otherwise, it's not implementable. And so we feel really strongly that we do a good job with that. I think the vision of the report that you folks did is there. I think it's pretty clear to you that the market and the technologies have changed a lot in the time that's passed since, most of that report was 6 years, maybe done like 6 years ago.
Most of it was done in 2010 or 2011.
Yeah, so some of the technologies are like 8 years out. Things have changed. In the middle of our design for that membrane plant with the rack membranes that Corey will show you, the technology changed, and we actually addressed an issue that we were hesitant about even putting the technology in play. The technology changed as we were trying to address it in the middle of our design. Things change, you need to adapt to them. So one of the main aspects you need to do is you need to go back and revisit the vision part, but then make sure that the pieces that you select make the most sense for you. And I think that's a really it doesn't change your vision, it's about how you're gonna implement it, that you gotta get into play there.
Okay. What other smart sewer projects has your firm most recently worked on?
So this is a question of the moniker. Calling it smart sewer is something, I don't know, Bob, did Charles River coin the term? I think Charles River coined the term. And so I've always called, we argued about this because I've used to call some of the things we do smart design. Corey has worked for me for a long time and knows I harp on people to always make good decisions and make sure they bring stuff to the client that they maybe didn't think about. I got to calling it integrated design, integrating different components into the design to make sure we did it. Newburyport's a great example, and we won an award for that project because we integrated like 8 different really challenging pieces. Even though it's a completely different project from yours, we got that all down to the end. And at the end, we still managed to get a project that beat our sustainability goals by getting LEED Gold. When we would have been happy, the town would have been thrilled to get just basic certification. You have to kind of understand that aspect of where you're going and how this all plays out. Our smart projects, I mean, the Bourne project we're doing right now, absolutely many of the components you've got in place, I would say absolutely qualifies. East Bridgewater, our current project, a lot of aspects. All the digestion projects that we've done, particularly the ones that have Commonwealth funding, absolutely meet the criteria. A lot of our privatized and semi-privatized projects. I mean, Corey talked a lot about the Makepeace project, which sounds bad because it's a developer, but the developers are thinking environmentally to try to solve the problems with the lowest cost. So they're actually advancing some techniques that we can benefit from on the municipal and the institutional side. We really just have to understand those aspects. And one of the things you're in the middle of doing this week is looking to even further decentralize it, not even use all the capacity, but try to get smaller plants out there. So you learn from those aspects a lot. I would say, I think we cited a dozen projects that had really strong smart sewer aspects in our RFP. And as I went through putting the slideshow together, I'm sure we forgot another dozen.
Okay. Again, I know you've answered this question, but what is your firm's experience with anaerobic digestion, water reuse, thermogeneration, and electrical generation type systems?
I tried to have a slide on all of these, and I was already going to do that. Digestion, we do work in northern New England where there's a lot of digesters already. That's pretty common, but the digesters tend to be focused on generating and then wasting heat on the treatment plant site, which is a little archaic. We're looking more at, the project we're looking mostly at in Fitchburg deals with the things you want to do. We want to harvest not just energy that we can sell back to the grid up there, but we want to harvest heat, which there's some big buildings adjacent to the site that spend a ton of money on heat. And we're going to have an excess of heat on top of generating electricity, so we want to be able to get that over there. We do it. We built them. We actually did that, the one I showed you, the one up in Maine, the digester. In 6 months, it went from design to construction and turned on. And they had to make the grant money work, they had to generate a megawatt of power out of it. And our design guy was up there, who's on our team, was up there turning the keys on it in the week after Christmas to make sure it would work. We talked about water reuse. I don't know that anyone else that is practicing in New England for New England firms has miles and miles of purple pipe design and development. We do that because we have an office in Florida, and that's one of our biggest projects, is working with Naples on reuse pipeline. It's great work, really, really neat things, and it gives you a lot of perspective on that. And many other things that Corey cited. Thermo we talked about, we have all scales, some good size thermo project to smaller. Thermo tends to be more about looking for good opportunities to match, but we've absolutely done that. And then electrical generation, I gave you the numbers on our renewable energy pieces. I feel like we're probably peerless in New England on that, but I haven't done that math. We don't go and look what our competitors do. So, sure we do.
Okay.
Yeah, we can talk in secret about that later.
What is your firm's experience dealing with permitting authorities for wastewater
Corey, you
treatment
want to do that?
facilities?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're designers and operators for wastewater treatment facilities, so we deal with them on a regular basis, good and bad at times. Sometimes you wish they weren't as involved, but I'd like to think that we do have a really good relationship with DEP and in all aspects of it, through design and into actual operations, so.
Good. Okay, all are you familiar with the various funding programs in the state for wastewater as they relate to communities? And what has been your experience in working with these funding agencies? And also, another one on top of that has your firm assisted communities with grant writing and the application process?
Yeah, so, I mean, that hits some of the slide that I talked about on our permitting. I think, you know, in terms of the grants and loans that are out there in Massachusetts, I think we've hit on every one of them multiple times with our clients, again, meeting the client's needs with the appropriate project. We've written grants. The one I highlighted was East Bridgewater, just because it's just the most recent one we did. So we, you know, that was one where we saw the grant come out. We talked about it in-house, and I said, you know, remember that, you know, East Bridgewater, we had worked on the CWMP, it was like 10 years old, 10 years ago that we had worked on it. We had limited, you know, we still had contact with the client, but we hadn't been under contract for anything, and so we reached out to them and we said, this might be, we think this is an opportunity for you. They said, you want to put it together, go ahead. So we put it together, they signed it, they got a $30,000 grant. With that money, we did the study, and out of the study came a design that they got through town meeting and appropriated, and they're very excited about it because it's, you know, it's an economic sustainability issue for them. Is, you know, the infrastructure right on Route 18 coming right through the center of town is something that they're going to be able to address now, as well as the plant needs more wastewater. You know, so the plant was designed to handle more. It was designed for what they make you design for a high school, which it never sees now. So, you know, the plant itself needs more flow. I didn't mean to harp on one example, but there's a bunch of things.
Corey's recently helped a client with an EDA funding for a wastewater project. We've done, I mentioned Mass CEC Clean Energy Council. We've done
Could you explain that a little, the Mass Clean Energy Center work you're doing?
So Mass Clean Energy funds renewable energy projects.
Right.
And they have an initiative to do that. And there are a range of funds available depending upon what you want to do. They have a particular interest in anaerobic digestion projects because they want to see that work take off a little bit more in Massachusetts. There's only a limited number of places where that organics to energy stuff really happens. And there's more being developed as time goes on. But little by little, you're getting them. The big one that most folks take their tipping to right now is in Rutland. It's
Right.
Jordan Farms. Big digester out there at agricultural site as well, similar to what we did up in Maine, blended together and goes. There's a municipal one that's just about to go online or has been approaching a point where it's going to be done, which is Greater Lawrence Sanitary District.
Right.
And they're just about to have one online. There's a bunch in the planning phase, but there aren't, the way CEC sees it, there aren't enough. So they now have, I think it's up to $90,000 worth of available funds for the early implementation and planning assistance through procurement, and we've helped even through RFP development for folks. They also, if you get into the implementation phase, have another like $500,000 cap that you can get funding through. It's a really good funding program, but you need to be serious about implementing those pieces. So you have to fit it together with your.
Well, it's certainly something that the town is interested in, is those grants. We've actually had conversations with them about this particular project, so they're very interested in.
Absolutely.
The fact that you work with them is useful.
They're also, we attend a lot of when they pull everyone together that's doing them, the kind of the meetings to see how everything's doing. They also tend to be frustrated because most folks who do the study kind of have a fairly textbook study, and then they throw it together and they look and they don't have a lot of implementation capability. So they're very frustrated that not enough projects are going forward to get where we want to go. And they're very supportive if you get a project that is truly implementable and has town support. So it's a good source.
Okay. Again, I know you've answered this question, but who specifically will be assigned to this project?
Sure. I mean, you're looking at the management team. You know, Kent would be the principal in charge for the project. He would be the guru. If you haven't noticed, he knows a lot about all these projects we've done in the company.
And Steve and Corey will attest to the fact that unfortunately I don't disappear from the project after you see me.
We try and get him to disappear at times. So Kent would be the principal in charge, and Corey and I would run the project. I'd be the project manager, and Corey would run the design team. And then we have a wealth of staff to draw upon that Kent has already alluded to.
Okay. How much of the work on this project do you foresee being subcontracted, and if you do have any, by whom?
So we have a primary subcontractor that we've mentioned, which is Green International Affiliates. Based on their local familiarity, we felt like they could help us bridge the gap, even though we've done some work in Littleton. They have been doing some town engineering for various projects, good familiarity with the properties and what's happening in local regs. So green is our big one. The only two really principally that we would use would be probably a driller to help advance the hydrogeo, and likely a lab to help us with some of this, some of the material testing. We're really turnkey. We could, except for the drilling and the labs, we actually own some rigs that technically could do the drilling, but we tend to not do that ourselves. We can pretty much turnkey a project like this, but we'll have those minor subs plus green.
Okay. All right, and the last question we have is, what is your experience with economic feasibility and financing?
So that's going to be one of the trickier pieces. I liked the way you developed in the RFP and in some of the reports, a lot of the background of all the different moving pieces to financing a project like this. Funding and financing are really challenging, and I think one of the aspects, the public-private partnership introduction doesn't make it easier, makes it a little more complex. The neat thing is we've done all those things. We actually have a project, there was a project that Corey and I worked on as a supplement to planning where we got a developer to build a piece with their own money. We also leveraged some financial contributions from, not necessarily a property owner, in this case it was a federal property owner, but not private money, to drive us towards the ability to build infrastructure for a town that has no sewers. And our planning would advance to a certain point and then kind of is in hold there right now. We pay a lot of attention to the moving pieces on the financing. On our team is Fran Yanuskewicz, who I said has been doing this for 40 years. He trains our staff on things like municipal finance and what the regulations say you can and can't do. The challenge, if you're not a Massachusetts firm and you haven't done a ton of work in Massachusetts, you tend to think about telling your clients all these great things you can do without knowing what the procurement laws say you can do and how you're going to actually do that. And frankly, we've been doing this for 100 years. I mean, we know better than almost any other firm what it takes to implement a project in Massachusetts. We also know what you can do within the bounds of the regulations and municipal finance laws, what you're allowed to do with money, how you're allowed to use enterprise funds and different aspects of fees. We've worked with the attorneys for communities extensively on projects. We continue to do that on virtually all the projects that we implement.
Yep.
There's a lot of moving pieces to the finance piece. But at the end, as we talked about in the project challenges, the project is only implementable if you can make the sustainability aspects work with financial sustainability. And this is not a slam dunk project to make it go. You got to do quite a bit of work and pay attention to a lot of really key aspects of this to make this project work right, particularly if you want to preserve your vision. And I think that's a big challenge where you're at. But I feel really great. I mean, Steve and myself in particular, Corey's a little more technical. Steve and myself in particular have spent a lot of our time honing skills and understanding those regulations and the things that we do. And with the backup of someone like Fran, and we've had some really specialized financial planning that we've done.
Okay.
And I feel good about our ability to help you.
Yeah, we screwed up. We asked two additional
Yeah, we had
questions.
two questions off script, but.
So-
One was,
Pop quiz at the
so
end.
we're gonna ask you again, and you've already, you may have already addressed this. Have you done any design, build, operate contracts? Was an additional question we asked the other one.
I think I mentioned that. We were the primary planner, designer, permitter, builder, and operator for the Makepeace job.
Correct.
Complete turnkey delivery by Weston Sampson, including building pipeline and everything else. As I said, I just finished a really great job, tightest permit limits in New England, where we were the owner's rep helping them manage the project, and umpteen jobs, I forget what I said, 80 plus jobs just on energy alone, where we used alternative delivery. So,
And the other question was.
The exit question is, you've read our reports, you've obviously responded to the RFP. Is there anything that isn't clear to you about what we're looking for, or any questions for us?
So, Steve and I actually came and talked, I don't know, Keith, whether you remember or not. In 2012, you invited a few firms in to talk
Yeah,
to the Board of Selectmen.
Yes. Yeah.
About implementability for a project like this. And we came in and our guidance at the time was to talk more about design, build, operate, and different delivery methods. So Steve and I think it was just the two of us that came in and talked in
there were a
2012 about this.
couple of firms that
And we
came.
read the report then, and we gave some feedback, and I actually have maintained a pretty good relationship with Bruce Douglas, who was at Natural Systems Utilities, and always been impressed with Bruce. He worked with us way back on Concord, and a lot of things that I think really resonated with us in the report. I still think that you need to, one of the first steps, and we talked about this, you need to go through and reconfirm the pieces that you're really committed to. And that's not a surprise, it's, like I said, it's a 6-7-year-old report. The pieces you're committed to, then we need to focus on those and decide how are we gonna make these the implementation goals? Because I'm a big one about making sure that we have hard goals and we focus our energy towards meeting those goals. A project like this can meander a lot.
If you just said something, I didn't hear what it was.
A project like this can
No question.
have a little bit of stumble over the fact that it's very visionary.
Yeah.
A lot of this is vision, and making that hard, making it implementable, there's a lot of stumbling blocks to get from vision to implementation. If you want the implementation to work well, you can just jump from vision to implementation and just not care, but we are committing municipal resources and financing, there's a lot of stakes with the public, your own reputations as select people being one of those things. There's a lot of work to do to get there. So even though I've read the report back then, and I reread it again this time, and I actually went back and read, NSU did another supplemental report, Bob, that's linked to the Charles River Watershed website too, which even updates some of the technologies there. And they talk about things that are happening in other parts of the world, like I just hosted a session at WEFTEC this past year where I had someone for Australia come in and talk about the sewer harvesting, which is a really big technology, and it's talked about in that NSU report. This thing's happening all over the place you gotta draw from, but it's all new. So you really have to think about how do we make this not just right, consistent with the vision you wanna be at, but reconfirm your vision, make it implementable, set the proper goals, and be able to move forward. And we certainly, if you move forward working with us, we'll probably spend quite a bit more time going through your report in detail. And probably one of the things Steve and I talked about was initially a really strong work session with quite a few hours dedicated to talking through each of the pieces and really getting to the the nuts and bolts, get to the nitty-gritty on this stuff.
Okay. Well, fantastic. Like I
you
said,
very much.
I appreciate you coming in and taking the time to
Thank you
talk
for
with
having
us.
us.
Thank you very
Good
much for
luck,
having
good
us.
luck with your process.
Thank you.
Briefly shut off
Take
the,
5 to collapse here and set up the next group.
This was good too, I like the HDM.
There we go.
What just happened?
I think you might have
Something?
touched
You turned
something.
something off.
I did?
You hit,
gonna go live.
Oh,
No, this.
Yeah,
no,
that's audio, that shouldn't even affect it.
no, well, something, we lost our,
Go on, Paul.
Yeah. Try paying the bill. Usually works.
You see? That's old school, Paul.
Uh-huh. Is the plug?
Is that important? Now you're gonna have to hand out the handouts.
Follow along at home.
Oh, there we go.
Life is good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so this is our third and final interview of the evening with engineering proposals, response to our RFP for the smart sewer project for the town, and the presentation and the interview will be with Fuss and O'Neill. The way we'll conduct it is as simple as follows. Introductions for your benefit. I'm Paul Glavy from the Board of Selectmen. The Vice Chair of the Board of Selectmen in the yellow shirt there is Chuck DeCoste. Melissa Hebert's Chair of the Board of Selectmen. And Bob Zimmerman, I guess some of you folks know, he's was involved with our report, 2012 report, feasibility study. He's also former chairman of our Board of Health, and he's executive director of the Charles River Watershed Association. Our town administrator, Keith Bergman, is here as well, and from here on out, the interview process will be conducted by our town engineer, DPW director, Chris Stoddard.
Good. Thank you guys for coming out, taking time to talk with us tonight at 7:30, right on time. How we're gonna run it is 20, 25 minutes for a presentation, and then we'll follow that up with some questions, another 20 minutes or so. So with that said, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. We're very excited about this project, as I'm sure you are as well, and we have real passion for this type of project, serving smaller communities like yours. And my name is Kurt Mailman. I would be the project manager for this project, okay? So I'd be in charge of the deliverables, the schedule. Also, my passion is working with small communities. I have 27 years in wastewater treatment, and I do the decentralized side of wastewater treatment as well. I'm a member of NAURA, which is the National On-Site Wastewater Innovation Association. I'm not sure if you know that or not, but it's the little pipe guys. I'm also a member of NUIA, and I sit on the Small Communities Committee at NUIA. I'm joined here by Bruce Douglas, who's with NSU.
right, Natural Systems Utilities, and we'd be a subcontractor to Fuss and O'Neill, and Kurt and I have worked together before. We've worked on a wastewater demonstration project, if you will, pushing the envelope of approaches for a nutrient removal project. And with myself, I bring the technical staff of Natural Systems Utilities. For the last 30 years, we've been doing small-scale on-site wastewater treatment and reuse systems. And from 20 years, specifically in Massachusetts, since we did the Rentham Village Premium Outlet Mall's water recycling system and Gillette Stadium, and to today. We can talk about that a little more later. But a key part of the project, in addition to the technical staff, is as equally important as the technical issues are the communication and funding issues. So Mary Monahan from Fuss and O'Neill will be handling that.
thank you, Bruce. So I'm Mary Monahan, and I'm a former town administrator, DPW director, and municipal treasurer. So folks tell me I'm the translator. I'm the person that can talk between the engineering team and the municipal project owner, because I understand how that project needs to fit within the fiscal, political, cultural, and the regulatory atmosphere in a community. And, you know, engineers like to design and do things, and they do that well. But, you know, there's a reason why your bridge isn't the same bridge as Westford has or anybody else, because it's your bridge. So what I bring to the table, in addition to that awareness, is the funding knowledge. So someone needs to pay for this project. And you know, the grant atmosphere out there is rather evolving right now, but I stay in tune to what's happening. In fact, today, in trying to prepare for this meeting tonight, I was also wrapping up a 604B Mass DEP grant for another community. So, we'll be working with you to identify funding opportunities. But while we're on this screen here, I'm also going to talk about another member of the project team because he's real important, and that's Mark Abrahams. Mark is a municipal financial expert, and he brings to the discussion how to pay for it locally with respect to how are you going to allocate costs. I've worked with Mark, this team has worked with Mark recently on the Central Mass Regional Stormwater Coalition to come up with funding for stormwater programs. And currently, Mark, he'd be here tonight, but he's out of town, but he's currently working on the Cape, which is a hotbed of innovative financing with respect to their wastewater needs. And he's working with the Cape Cod Commission and the town of Orleans, putting together a financial model that allows those communities to look at it parcel by parcel. What might the costs be with this amount of betterments, this amount of grants, this amount of taxation? And it's high-end, and it may not be something Littleton needs, but that's the dialogue that he'll bring to this discussion with respect to how do you pay for it and how do you allocate those costs.
In addition, we also have all of your basic disciplines, the MEPs, anything on the design side. My background specifically is started in construction and now is in management, but I started out boots on the ground, so putting a project together and implementing it is as important as putting it together and advising it. So just a little bit about Fuss & O'Neill, if you're not familiar with us. We have 270 employees in 5 offices, 2 of which are in Massachusetts, 1 in Boston and 1 in West Springfield. We're a multidisciplinary firm. We do everything on the environmental side, general civil, and we also have a design build arm that we have, and manufacturing solutions, a whole host of services that we provide to clients like you. Our focus generally on the wastewater side has always been in small to mid-sized communities, as I mentioned before.
In Natural Systems Utilities, as I mentioned, has been working in this field in Massachusetts for 20 years. But essentially, we're a firm that designs, builds, and operates small-scale on-site wastewater treatment and recovery systems, as well as energy recovery systems from anaerobic digestion. So we have that integrated in-house approach, and this scale is our sweet spot. That we are very comfortable at a small, modular scale, and we'll talk about some examples of those, but this is right in our wheelhouse. So part of my role is to be the liaison between the project as it originally was completed, that Natural Systems Utilities did with most of the work in 2011 to the current. So I would like to say, what is smart storing? I mean, and it's a big report, a lot of information in there, but really what it is integrating a number of environmental infrastructures to come up with an affordable outcome. The real focus is on affordability. That's to be smart. How can we make this achieve our municipal objectives as well as to be cost effective and something that's bondable at a town meeting vote. So in that, it's using and reusing resources close to the source as possible, and looking for revenue streams that you can get from recycling resources. And a key part of it is just-in-time construction, I like to call it. I mean, like when they build automobiles, they don't have warehouses anymore of parts. The parts come on a car, and they're ready just the day you need them. And in the factory. Here, you don't want to build a treatment plant that's for a 30-year build-out for a small initial demand. So you want to build focused on your actual needs in the community and expand, have it replicable so it can expand as you move forward. So in that concept, this graphic shows it, that the flows, will increase potentially as the system, expands modularly, and the difference between the blue line and the red line is if you build in increments, an expandable system, you'll build the blue line, and the red line is what you're avoiding the extra cost to the initial users. And this is very different from conventional engineering. Conventional engineering has always been look big, design for the 30-year population growth for the largest area possible. Instead, this is looking in a very concise, specific way to meet the needs today and have a system that can grow as the needs change in the future.
And that keeps end-user costs down, which is the most key element of that process. So why do we want to do this, right? What is this project all about? Well, it's really about economic development, for the most part. There is some environmental issue, probably some Title V's that are marginal at best in that common area, but overall, you want to have a vibrant common area. And the key to a vibrant common area is being able to sewer that area. We canvassed the area and talked with some of the business owners and got their input and their opinions about this project. And overall, they were all in favor. Some of them are constricted to their development right now or expansion of their businesses. Why? Because of the issues with wastewater. And so that's a key element that also fits in with your townwide master plan that just came out as a draft recently. So, what we want to do is work with you collaboratively and find the best project for you. At the end of the day, it's your project, it's not ours. We don't believe in foisting a project theme on our clients. We like to listen to their feedback, incorporate it in with their planning efforts, and make the best project for everyone. So that's our goal.
I just wanted to add to the economic development opportunity and why now and why today. So, again, as Kurt said, we spoke to several of the business owners downtown. There was, in particular, Greg at the sub shop, and he would love to see his business expand, but the limits of his business are where they're going to stay until he gets access to greater wastewater treatment. But he was also scared about, if we do sewer here, what happens when McDonald's comes in. So sewering going hand in hand with your master plan would be important, because in reality, that sewering allows you to protect your downtown and keep those thriving businesses without having them move out. But within your master plan, you're going to protect that historic character. So the sewering enhances the business presence down there, as well as the master planning protects it. And the other thing, why now? The mass modernization bill that was recently passed in the fall allowed for a different allocation of betterments. Betterments in the past used to have a 20-year term. So whoever would have been hit with a betterment for the cost of the sewer had a 20-year payoff timeline. Now with the mass modernization bill, it allows you to extend those betterments out over 30 years to match the debt limit. So the annual cost associated to the business owners or whoever is picking up the betterments has now gone down. So that affordability factor is back in play.
So relative to technical expertise, one project I'd like to highlight that's in our package that we presented to you is the Easton Mass. It's a public-private partnership, and that in the upper left-hand corner, that brick building is a wastewater treatment plant that treats to reuse quality in the town of Easton, and that was part of the public-private partnership. Is 1/3 of its capacity is for the town, and the town has, since that was built, passed a sewer district ordinance and established a sewer district, and they have funded it, and they're going to start construction this year and be hooking up the first municipal hookups to the plant in winter 2017, 2018. But the real benefit is the private developer has 100,000 gallons per day capacity there. He only needs 50 currently. So he doesn't have to build, he's built the whole building to enclose it, but he doesn't have to put all the equipment in and all the exterior tanks for his last 50,000 gallons per day till he needs it. But it was advantageous to both the town and the owner that they get the economy of scale, get the system a little larger. The lower cost per gallon per day of capacity is achieved by sharing resources. And the town paid for their capacity. The town paid what it cost the owner to 1/3 of the construction cost. And then the one in the lower left is at the point. That's the installation of the membranes at the point that we designed, built, and currently operate the existing wastewater treatment plant for the point. That was actually one of my first projects when I started at Natural Systems Utilities. And Kurt's going to talk a little bit about the other two projects.
Yeah, so one of the things that was brought up and discussed in the original report was the idea of combined heat and power through anaerobic digestion, both with a combination of food waste and also septic waste, okay? There were some funding avenues that were available 6 years ago when this was put together that may or may not be available today, although DEP has recently said, as recently as today, that they're open to these discussions going forward, and they may open up these funding sources again as we go forward. So it's a small element of the project, but it's something that we should look into. One thing I forgot to say about Mary is, she is dogged in her pursuit of any and all funding mechanism. She unearths every stone. She knows more about the funding sources than 10 of us typical engineers, trust me. So she will find those opportunities to, again, at the end of the day, minimize that end user cost, right? So, the idea of anaerobic digestion is really just taking that methane gas and also harvesting that resource on the sludge and using those as a beneficial revenue source, potentially, all right? Whether it's going to be applicable for this project or not, our goal is to try to get to that answer really quickly without a lot of expenditure of time.
If I could quickly add, and back to the slide we had of the people on the project, Bob Spencer is part of our team, and his specialty is characterizing organic feedstocks. And he's done it with Mass CEC-funded projects in Central Mass, looking at where the existing food processing byproducts are available, and determining whether it's a cost-effective, what is the, not only availability, but what's the potential competitive cost that because the tipping fee is important with that, as well as the trucking. So we have built into our team the ability to characterize that element.
Thanks. And one of the key elements that you're going to face under any circumstance when you need a groundwater discharge permit is, where's the wastewater going to go, right? After it's treated to one level or another, in order to do a groundwater discharge, you're going to recharge the groundwater, but it has to have the right soil strata. It has to be able to get dispersed appropriately into the ground. Unless, of course, you're bagging it up and selling it, which, would be the optimum solution, but maybe not applicable in this instance. So just a little bit about, the area, the study area. This is the Village Overlay District. This is primarily the area that you want to collect the wastewater from. That wastewater is going to be rather high strength because it's generally going to be commercially related. So you're going to have to make an accommodation and be cognizant of that when dispersing it into the soils strata. Over on our right, not to make people swing back and forth here, but this is an overlay area of the study area. This is your village common area, and this map shows the soil suitability. It's a guideline. It's certainly not what you need in order to permit this. DEP requires a two-stage permitting process in order to get a groundwater discharge permit. First, you have to do a hydrogeological report, which is boots on the ground and looking at viable sites that are drained appropriately, also looking at their proximity to sensitive receptors, zone 2s, things like that, and putting together a cogent set of criteria and doing some evaluations about what soils capacities are going to be going forward. So that's the first stage. Then you go for your groundwater discharge permit as a subsequent step once that is approved. And we have a lot of experience doing that.
So, and real quickly, I know time is an issue. The project on the left, the 20-year design, build, own, operate, finance is a project where Natural Systems Utilities basically installed the infrastructure to utilize biogas created by municipal wastewater treatment plants, anaerobic digestion system. So we installed that at no cost to the municipality and basically sell them back electricity at a cheaper price than they would have paid otherwise, from what we can achieve through the creation of electricity with combined heat and power at the plant. And the one in the upper right is one where we built a system that does both water recycling and thermal energy recovery. So basically, in sharing that thermal energy, the warm water essentially you get from wastewater, once you treat it, it's just like a geothermal heat pump, but you don't have to drill the well. The water's right in the tank, so you can extract that energy very cost effectively.
Okay, so that's all really cool stuff, but now you got to pay for it, right? And this is where the fun kind of comes in. And so, working with the team and working with Mark Abrahams and working with Mass DP and others, as Kurt noted, I was on the phone today with several folks at Mass DP and DOER talking about, what the history has been in funding these kind of projects, recognizing that, because of the AD market right now, that the funding's kind of backed away, but it's an evolving program. So, as one funding goes away, another one tends to take its place. And popular now, and especially in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, because our governor, has led this initiative, funding for climate change impacts. I mean, you being here and with the watershed, the removal of water from one basin and discharging it into another, effect, that's a potential drought risk that could be exacerbated as a result of climate change. That could be a funding pool. But whatever those funding pools are, we're going to find it for you. So it could be for elements of the project. It could be for the entire project, low interest or zero interest loans from SRF. And the other part about the funding is once you have the capital cost paid for, how are you going to pay for the actual payments back? There's still, you're not going to find 100% grant, which is too bad. But so we can sit down through Mark Abrahams, through discussing with the public and the people who are going to pay for it, what's a comfortable allocation of costs? I previous reports and previous, newspaper articles, look at betterments, and that may be the way you go. But at the end of the day, it's going to come out of a discussion over what's best for the community and what does the community support, which goes back into that, public education and outreach. We should never be at town meeting fighting for a project. By the time you get to town meeting, most of the public should have bought into this. Their input into this should have helped you define your project, because it's their project. So, we begin with the leaders of the community, the Board of Selectmen. You're going to be, leading that charge, that dialogue, that discussion, or directing us as to who we need to talk to and where we go. Town residents, whether it's site visits based on, proposed locations for the groundwater discharge, walking the town center to look at the businesses that are there, the businesses being affected, and talking to advocates who might be the business owners. Mass DEP, they're the regulators. They're going to tell you, what your regulatory and your technical limits are, but they're also a source of funding. And like I said, I talked to two people today, and they were very encouraging about, as this project moves forward, they want to get into the discussion early to help you identify where some of that funding might come from. And again, back to that local businesses as well as all of the other stakeholders. Those businesses are here, they're a local resource, not only when it comes to the commercial businesses that they do, but also to the tax revenues. They're what makes your Littleton Common thriving. So again, key to this project, aside from the technical component, which this team delivers well, is finding the money and then making it affordable and getting the public to understand the value.
So I think the really unique qualifications we bring to the table is our experience with public-private partnerships in Massachusetts, and that could really have a potential significant cost savings to the project. Be able to deliver a system through the design, construction, and operation of the system, which is allowed in Massachusetts for projects over $5 million, and then also the sizing the infrastructure appropriately. The upper right-hand corner is actually the system for the point at Littleton that now treats 38,500 gallons per day in that little 22 by 24 foot building, and the tanks out in front of it.
The bottom one is Alumni Field.
It is, when they win the Super Bowl. And one thing, and we wrote.
We have won the Super Bowl.
Right.
There's a shirt missing.
The thing is, we have smart steering experience.
You want it right there, too.
That's right.
Sorry. It can. Dream big. Sorry. So anyway, so we're very comfortable with smart steering because we've been doing it for the last 7 years. And we have, as Mary mentioned, a creative and strategic financing approach.
Explain what you did at Gillette.
What we did? We feel we had played a significant role. Many people did in Massachusetts, but the town of Foxborough did not have the infrastructure for a pop-up city of 68,000 people on a weekend, or in a few hours, literally. Have a water wastewater need. They didn't have the water supply, and they didn't have the sewer capacity. The other alternative would be to extend the MWRA all the way down to Foxborough, which would have major land use implications to multiple communities and issues associated with it. Instead, what they were able to do is have an on-site wastewater reclamation system, 250,000 gallons per day. So it's a larger system than was envisioned for the total flows in the previous study, where we have a buffer. First, we have a million gallons of storage tanks. So game day flows can go into these buffer tanks, if you will, and then we treat the water to reuse quality and pump it up to, there's a blue tank, this is a municipal water tank across Route 1 on the hill. That's recycled water. It's clear as the bell. It's what's used to flush toilets on game day in the stadium, in the Bass Pro Shop, in the Patriot Place shops, and our treatment plant is right next to the Olive Garden. So really, it's a very clean and friendly neighbor, if you will, to a very heavily used facility.
And I, for one, are very happy
Yep, you're
every
good.
other Sunday to take advantage of that, let me tell you.
Plus, they restored a stream there, so not bad.
The craft's actually very progressive. Yeah.
So in closing, we're running a little bit short on time here. So, some of the key things that we bring to the table is experience across the board on the smart sewering aspect. In fact, Bruce helped write the book, literally, on smart sewers. And a cost-effective, green-type approach, minimizing the size, putting together the financial, technical, and funding elements of the project, and selling the project to your town, so that, and working the public outreach end to get a positive project moving forward. Remember, at the end of the day, it's your project. It's yours plus the business owners in the common area. And so we come in with kind of a very niche, minimized approach, not the conventional approach. I've worked on both sides. I've worked on the big pipe solutions. I've also worked on these minimized, what I call decentralized solutions. And, for small communities like yours, this is probably the appropriate approach going forward. But we want to hear and listen to you and get your feedback on how this project actually comes to fruition. And that's what we bring to the table as a group.
Fantastic.
With that, thank you for the
Thank you.
opportunity.
Well, we have the question.
Yeah, so we got a few questions. Like I said, you touched on some of these, so you can elaborate further, or you can just say, I already answered that. So the first one is, what challenges do you foresee with this type of a project?
Well, first of all, I think I mentioned this a little bit before. On the technical side, there are different elements to the project, but on the technical side, it's really getting that groundwater discharge permit, the dispersal of the effluent, and finding the right site that's the appropriately sized site that doesn't cost you too much in infrastructure costs to get to the dispersal site. So, getting the boots on the ground early in the process are important to that aspect. And then also making sure, the other important challenge is making sure that we're working collaboratively with the town of Littleton. And, that's our goal, is to bring people in, have constructed solutions that people have already bought into, and that's going to help on the outreach side as well.
Okay, fantastic.
One more.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, no, because I just. think
Mary
it's
likes to
important.
talk.
No, no,
Notice?
no, but, yeah, I think one of the challenges in looking at the history of this project is also getting the town to understand the value of it to them. Okay, and, you know, that's significant, and it's a game changer in the community. It's what's going to, let's use the term, save your Littleton Common from that in that historic context. You know, in the absence of sewers, you're going to have the smaller businesses there, you're going to have the businesses that can't move there. You know, one of the discussions I had with one of the business owners was the length of time it took a couple of buildings to find tenants, because proposed businesses there couldn't take the wastewater disposal limits. So it's a game changer there. But it's also, aside from an economic development opportunity, it's also a future opportunity in that you have businesses already established in town right now, major employers that don't need access to the system right now, but that could change 10, 15, 20 years from now. So you have something in place to address that. You have the opportunity to enhance your tax revenues as that common development increases in value. You know, and the increase is going to be, you know, related to the increase in the businesses that are there. You know, you've increased the revenues coming into the community. And it complements what's going on at the Point. That's just down the road. So those businesses aren't competing with the Point, and the Point isn't with them. That's all kind of synergy. You've got the different kind of shopping district in a historical setting versus the more modern of the road. So I just think, you know, for the community, expressing and sharing with them and getting them to understand what those benefits are important to the success. And that's a challenge.
And real quick, one third one is really exploring and confirming the available revenue opportunities. You know, if you create recycled water, you need someone who's willing to pay for it, or a use that is beneficial to the community to use it for. And so it's very important that we drill down. It's going to be a challenge, but to talk to individual landowners and property owners and business owners, institutions, to see where are the opportunities, whether, for example, for non-potable water or energy, that they would be willing to buy to help get those cost offsets.
Okay, good. So what is the design philosophy of your firm? And the 2012 study has come out with some interesting ideas and concepts for smart sewering system. What is your opinion of the study, and do you think the ideas are still appropriate?
Yeah, as we mentioned, you know, the 2012, it was actually 2011, and it came out like January, I think, really set the framework for further evaluation, but it didn't go all the way into the evaluation stage, and things have changed a little bit. Everyone here acknowledges that. So, you know, what we're going to do going forward is, our philosophy is to try to streamline that evaluation process and get to the project faster. You know, not spend an undue amount of time studying things, turning it into a science experiment, so to speak, but actually getting to the project. And that has to happen really collaboratively, both through your master planning documents, through the Board of Selectmen, the stakeholders that Mary mentioned before, and us as a team, essentially.
Just to quickly add, it also,
Every time we're done, I'm not going to start talking.
all right.
We're answering as a team
It
here.
may-
I know, I'm sorry.
Well, one thing that it may not be familiar to engineers with a traditional, narrow, compartmentalized focus.
You don't do that.
It's very, I mean, I'm an engineer, but basically, it is integration. It's actually real engineering, it's problem solving on a very site-specific issue, and it's a complex study, but it really ends up with some very simple outcomes.
I'm done.
Okay.
At this rate, we'll be here till 9.
No, that's okay. Like I said, this next one you have answered, but you
We'll
can.
be here till 8:30.
What other
That'll stop us?
what other smart sewer projects has your firm most recently worked on? I know you've already answered that, but.
So, yeah, we quick jump
Okay.
ahead. So basically that, we've been working with the Charles River Watershed Association on urban smart sewering, how to apply these concepts of energy use and water use and reuse locally in a sewered area. And that's been really enlightening because of the high cost of water and sewer in the MWRA is making it potentially cost-effective to mine the sewer and utilize those resources that are available. And simultaneously, in the last 4 years, the project I mentioned before, up with the thermal energy recovery and water reuse for district energy, that's a real-time application. That's actually a municipal project that saved money to the municipality, because otherwise they were going to have to build a new sewer line under a river. Instead, they could do the recycling on site, and they got the added benefit of the thermal and water reuse.
And of course, the point.
Good point. Okay. What is your firm's experience with anaerobic digestion, water reuse, thermogeneration, and electrical generation systems?
We touched on a lot on water reuse at Gillette Stadium, other projects, Rentham and the Fort McMurray project, but also in anaerobic digestion, the village of Ridgewood, we touched on that one, the design, build, own, operate, finance, thermal energy generation. In addition to the project for the municipality that I just mentioned, is we've been recycling water in Manhattan since 2001. In high-rise condominiums in Battery Park. And we've just started to actually install thermal energy recovery systems, and they're very cost-effective, just have a couple of years payback, because you've got this warm water inside the building and can capture that heat and use it to augment the heating system of the building. So in addition, Fuss & O'Neill has anaerobic digestion of the project that was shown in the slide, in a larger municipal, New England perspective.
And that's one of many, actually. Jeff McDonald actually knows Bruce from very long ago, doing agricultural anaerobic digestion from agricultural sites and cow farms and Ben & Jerry's and other places like that in Vermont. So they have a long history of doing that, and Jeff's been in the business for 35 years, and that's his focus.
Okay, good. Okay, what is your firm's experience dealing with the permitting authorities for wastewater treatment facilities?
Let's see if we can, let me just touch that. So Mass DEP, basically, as Kurt mentioned, it's a two-step process. Natural Systems Utilities does this regularly at this scale, and I think that's what's very different, is this is our comfort zone, is in the tens to a few hundred thousands of gallons per day. And just yesterday, I was at Mass DEP in Worcester, meeting with the head of the groundwater discharge permit program, because they just revised their rules in December of 2016. And DEP and the regulated community are all getting used to how do we implement the new rule changes. And we've specifically, in the last few years, we've done the project in Littleton here at the Point, we've done a project in Holliston, and there's one in Berlin. It's actually under construction right now, a smart growth system serving a smart growth development right next to Solomon Pond Mall.
Yeah, what we show in the graphic here is just for people that aren't that familiar. You sit with the DEP, have a pre-application meeting is the process, and you bring in some information, some mapping on potential sites. You look at that and look at the sites. They will put together a program, or you will collaboratively work to put together a program, install some monitor wells, maybe do some slug testing. The permitting process in Massachusetts is very prescriptive, so pretty much every permit follows the same path. And so, the graphics just show you're out there digging test pits, you're figuring out what kind of soils you have and what their capacity is. That's the long and the short of it.
Oh, but design, preliminary design of the engineering of the system. Yeah.
Okay, are you familiar with various funding programs in the state for wastewater as they relate to communities? And what has been your experience in working with these funding agencies? And another one on top of that would be, has your firm assisted communities with grant writing and the application process?
Yes. Okay. So the big pool of money out there is the state revolving fund. And so that's 2% loan unless you've got some energy efficiencies and renewable energy generation, and you can probably get some debt forgiveness. or some nitrogen removal, which I don't think is going to be an issue in this project here. So SRF is the granddaddy of them all. And then you can start going down for other elements of the project that can grab out bits and pieces. Again, if there are some energy efficiencies or some climate change components of the project, either, risk mitigation or any of that, there might be some grants out there that could fund that component of it. I know you and I spoke quickly a while ago about the potential for USDA, and I know Littleton is not a lower income community. However, I've worked with other communities that also didn't think they were eligible for USDA, RDA funding, but if you carved out a sewer district area that actually did show in a survey of earnings of the folks in that, you could qualify for some grant and low-interest loan assistance. I mean, again, I've worked with communities that, as a whole, they wouldn't qualify, but within a sewer district study area, that those income levels went down to make them eligible.
Believe it
So-
or not, some of the places on the Cape have been eligible
have been
for
eligible for
USDA funding.
RDA. So it's definitely not a program you want to dismiss, because,
Provincetown it was.
Yep, yeah, there you
We
go.
had the Washington Post call me one time because there are people in real rural areas were concerned that this money was going to a tourist community. To which I said, Provincetown is many things to many people, and to the USDA, we're rural, so we'll take it.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Money's money.
So in all those programs, I've worked with communities on getting that funding. So, those again, and on top of the fact that it's an evolving world out there when it comes to grants, both from the federal government and the state. And again, I see the state stepping up to the plate more so moving forward. And we keep those communications open to become aware of what might be happening and what projects we have that funding would fit.
Mary and Mark are both well-connected, suffice it to say.
Who specifically will be assigned to this project?
You're looking at the team right here. I'm going to be the day-to-day guy, so if you're working through and you want to schedule a meeting, I'll be the point of contact. I'm going to be the project manager. We're not, we don't think it's ethical, and we don't espouse the idea of having other people show up at the interview and then do a bait and switch. That's not where we're at. So I think we talked about our team in some detail, and yeah, we're the guys that you're going to deal with.
Good. How much of the work on this project would be subcontracted out, and by whom?
Well, we have an interesting relationship with NSU because they have some real strengths that suit our areas where we have some weaknesses. So we work really well together. We have really strong background, as does NSU actually, on the subsurface dispersal side, also on the permitting side and collection system side. That's my background actually. And they've got a lot of experience on the resource recovery side, and combine those with the outreach that we can perform and the financial through Mark Abraham's, that puts a pretty strong team together. And so we've made a little pie chart here that shows, essentially that, even though we're the prime on this, NSU is going to have a significant portion and a significant part of the project that they'll be responsible for. And the last little sliver there, the 1 to 5%, that's, that's the anaerobic side. That's, that's with Bob Spencer and his group as our subcontractor as well.
One thing, this is an atypical project, because we're driving towards affordability, and rather than say, it's just another municipal project, let's design it and put it on paper and get it funded, we say, how can we make this work as affordable as possible for Littleton, but meeting Littleton's objectives for community characteristics and economic development. So in doing it, this is a really great synergy of the two firms bringing our strengths together to make it happen.
It's not a conventional project. No. In our estimation, we hope that you feel the same.
What is your experience with economic feasibility and financing?
All infrastructure projects fit within an economic world. I mean, whether it's a roadway project, again, this wastewater treatment project, so, and again, building in some economic initiatives in that opens up the door to additional funding opportunities. So, it's no more of a DPW director going out and doing a roadway without taking into consideration what's happening in the community around that. So, that's just integrated into our project delivery system.
I brought along just a case study that we did, looking at, well, there were 17 alternatives for this area of Groton, and over a period of, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years, there were 17 alternatives, and what their focus was to bring out public sewers, obviously, to promote development, and we looked at each one of the parcels and, what kind of tax revenue they could generate, and if they were built out a certain way, we worked with the planners to look at their master plan to see what future construction could happen, and then we did evaluations of what the infrastructure would cost with respect to the improvements, and this was the latest breakdown of, capital costs. This was a sewer and water project because they needed both pieces of infrastructure. Wells were prevalent in the area, and then we just looked at all the various sources and tried to figure out what was the most cost-effective solution for 17 developing alternatives as a project case study. And at the end of the day, they still haven't built any of these, is the long and the short of it, but at least they know what they're facing right now in terms of potential revenue and infrastructure costs.
Well, to add to Mary, she mentioned about Mark, is what he's done, and Mark Abrams has done in the Cape, is be able to distill a cost down to what it would cost per individual lot, and do that early enough, because it's both the economic feasibility, but it's also the willingness of the users to pay and to make an informed decision of what they're getting into. So that's a key part of this.
Good. We got 2 pop quiz questions.
Okay, we didn't study. Okay.
Have you done any design, build, operate contracts?
Yes. Yep, Gillette Stadium is a clear one.
The point?
The point, we've designed it, we built it, and we operate it, yes. And the Ridgewood, the biogas project, was design, build, operate, own and finance. And that's, we have a number of projects.
Have any of you toured the points system? I mean, it's literally right down the road, and, it's worth taking a look at. It's a modular system that really espouses a lot of the tenets of a smart sewering system.
And the last one,
All right, here's the wrap-up exit question. You've seen our report, you've seen the RFP. Do you have any parts of that unclear, or anything, any questions you have of us about the project, our intentions?
Pondering this for a second.
I think we had questions as we began this, but I think a lot of them got answered by, the research we did and the changing environment and, talking to the towns. I mean, when we went to town on Monday, that was one of our big questions, is why is this project starting right now, and what are the expectations and/or the fears? And I talked to Dominic in the package store, and he's all in favor. He's the one that sent me to Greg at the sub shop and said he's got some challenges. I think you talked to Joe in the market.
Mansour and his wife said, hey, we'd like to do
'cause
something more
they're
here.
not only going to be the ones served by the project, but they're the ones that are probably going to be the bulk of paying for it. So that was one of our questions, is that support here that may not have been there in the past?
And I have a question, I guess, on timeline. What's your objectives relative to timeline to have a project, and then working backwards, what do you see as the key milestones to getting there from your standpoint?
I'll take a stab at that, although I'll defer to the technical folks. What we had told town meeting last fall was that we were looking at 3 phases in a rollout of the funding. We got 1 round of funding to, signal the town's support for going forward last fall. This spring would be the remainder of that, essentially Phase 1 design work funding, and then idealistically or optimistically, next fall, construction funds. But a lot of it will be driven by the work of whoever the engineering firm is and where that takes us. Does that sound fair?
I think a fair answer would also be that we'll go as quickly as we can go and no
Right.
quicker, because of what you've said and what the others have said, is that in order for a project like this to proceed, you need the community support, you need to prove to yourself that it's economically viable, that the assumptions that we had 6 years ago are still in place, or that there are alternate assumptions that we can substitute, that the scale is right, and that all of that stuff pushes us towards going forward. And to say that there's been a lot of great information that's come out of our interview process, of the steps collectively that we need to take in order to make in order to make smart decisions about proceeding or not with the smart sewer. So,
Let me add one thing. I think Mary touched on this a lot earlier, and I thought it was wise. I don't think that the 100 properties in the district, that the owners of the 100 properties, by and large, with the exception of the family that owns the IBM site and Sam at the Point, really understand what this would allow them to do. So simply buying the capacity to treat what they currently discharge would be a mistake for most of them. I mean, they need to be led by somebody through a process where they think about what their property might be and what they want between now and, say, the actual construction of the facility, and what's available, what that's going to cost them, how they make decisions. And I think in that process, Mary, you're going to get a tremendous amount of buy-in from people. Because right now, talking to Greg, what I heard you say is he doesn't really understand
Right.
what his options are.
Yeah, he said it was a two-sided sword.
You're
you
right.
know? Yeah.
He sees a cost on one hand and a benefit on the other, and he doesn't understand how the two go together and what his options are, given the prospect of
He
a
doesn't
facility
know the
going.
building either.
Yeah,
But we started, just to, put this in perspective of the time frame you're looking for, the first stab at recognizing our need for sewering at the common area, and actually in other areas in town, was 2001. So we haven't exactly been in a breakneck pace since then, but we would like to pick it up a little bit.
We do this weekend.
We're ready. In Tisbury, in the vineyard, when we solved their problem in 1999, they had started in 1909.
That's glaciatic.
So we're in good shape, you're in great shape.
That wasn't West Tisbury.
No, Tisbury, and we started in 1997 on the project. They threw out their previous consulting team and.
Takes a long time.
Yep.
One of the things that's really gonna set your timeline, even after you get a full go on this, is really the permitting process.
yeah.
That is not something that you're going to be able to control,
Right.
Thank you very
Well,
much.
thank you so much.
Appreciate you coming
Appreciate
out for
the
your time.
opportunity to see you.
Right on time?
Okay,
Close, huh?
Thank you.
great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate
Good
this.
to see you.
Nice to meet you. What town were you an administrator
I
in?
was an administrator in Hatfield.
Thanks very
and I
much.
was
Great to
a
see you. Thank you.
treasurer in South Hadley.
Oh, great.
Okay.
And I ended up the DPW director.
Oh, you don't know. Thanks so much, appreciate it. Hope you know it's a pleasure.
The old man.
On Monday night,
Bruce, nice to meet you. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you. Melissa, I'm sorry.
Melissa, nice.
Yeah, I'll do that, and maybe
Hopefully I see you again.
talk while it's still fresh in our minds.
Well, that's what I was hoping.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, thank you. Thanks. Did you have any extras of this?
I just gave you one, yeah, that was,
Katie, Anna, if you want to stick around, we are going to discuss this a little bit. I don't know, you've already committed 3 hours so far. So it's up to you. Just want to make you aware, we are going to, discuss it.
Stay and have more fun.
More fun.
I think the Starbucks is calling right about
Yeah, there you go.
Goodness.
I think the next step would be the interviews, or the references for the finalists.
I think we can discuss this anyway.
Before you make a decision about which ones you like, you gotta do the references.
Make sure, yeah.
Yeah.
collect all our gear.
Get someone to be there?
Helps take my left. Yeah, that might be a good idea.
Right.
Take care.
Bye, thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah, you can go
Thank you
right,
so
that's the back
Yeah,
parking lot right
you
there.
can head over
care.
there. Thank you all, appreciate it.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, thank you, Bruce.
Well,
We're very lucky.
Yeah.
We have
They're all good.
they're all good. We have got to meet the teams in all 3 cases.
Extracted
That
some
they all
information.
I mean, I have to say that the process that we went through, I think, served them well, and it served us very well, because they got the questions in advance, they had time to think about it, and then they gave us thoughtful answers.
right.
In their
I agree.
presentations, and they took full advantage of getting of
Preparing.
preparing, exactly. Yeah, so we got a lot of great information in a very short period of time tonight.
Okay, so the next steps, I'll start calling references tomorrow for,
Yeah,
how do we want
I
to?
think we probably need to pick a date that the team can reassemble to hear back, because we've got a lot of the information that you need to choose, but there's a big gap of what you don't have, and what you need in making the selection, and that is the references.
Okay, well, we'll certainly pursue the references, but I don't think there's any reason we shouldn't, while everything's fresh in our mind and the team is here, go through it right now and have a discussion on our impressions of the
Yeah, I would certainly
applicants.
agree with that, because a week from now, we're gonna be looking at notes and trying to recall stuff.
Right,
We got
right.
nuances right now.
So I don't know, I don't think there's anything more logical than just having everybody go through and give their impressions of the 3 of them, understanding, of course, Melissa, that you hadn't had a chance to see the first one, but you will.
I saw the first half hour.
Oh, you did, okay, all right.
We've got most of their presentation.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't hear any of the Q&A,
Yeah.
but, yeah.
Do you want to start with your impressions of each of the groups, then? We'll start with you.
See how it is
Yeah.
when we pick on you first?
Right, right.
Hey, I've not been in the middle before. Just give me like 10 seconds.
Okay, we'll start with someone else then.
I can,
Jim, you
I'll
want to?
give you my impression. First of all, I was, like Keith said, I was impressed by all 3. I was more impressed by Weston and Sampson than I expected to be. I was impressed by Wright Pierce and their review of the draft and the questions they asked and that sort of thing. I do have some reservations, which I expressed to Chuck, and that's a bias, because I deal with firms that like to question, sustainable projects and drive them back toward, conventional. I don't think that Wright Pierce is coming from that perspective, and I think that they're asking good questions. I also heard from the other 2, though, that they're going to reevaluate everything. Fuss and O'Neill, however, asked some questions, gave us insights that nobody else did.
the focus on funding and town acceptance, the fact that they actually went out and interviewed people in the town to get a sense of how this is going to be accepted and what the issues are. On some level, they assumed that we knew that they're very technically competent at this, that they can put these systems together. So what they focused on was sort of the software behind it. How do you sell it to the town? How do you drive the costs down? Mary's insistence on looking for funding, non-conventional funding, if you will, to help the end user so that we're not driving up costs at the end. The one thing that Wright and Pierce did that I didn't hear the other two do was the introduction of the WIC concept for dealing with. But I have to say, all things being equal, I come out where I thought I came out after reading through the process, and I favor Fuss and O'Neill. I think that they're going to do the best job of finding a project that generates electricity, generates thermal energy, and drives down costs for the town, allows this project to really move forward. And I was really impressed with Mary, I have to tell you.
Well, I'll jump in now.
Sure,
because
sure, go right
that's-
ahead.
That's kind of where, I mean, Mary was the tipping point for me relative to Fuss and O'Neill. She really was. She was on point with every answer she gave, very insightful, just adding her extra 2 cents on any comments that Kurt or Bruce had made. But she was really focused on funding with specifics, and made a point to bring that up, on multiple occasions. Kurt obviously feels as though that's a big asset because he brought it up again, reiterated it. And she made some points more salient than I think Bruce and the engineers did, frankly. I think she kind of made them, kind of put them in layman's terms, and, which helped me. And the fact that, to your point, Bob, they went out and they knocked on doors to the potential, the prospective users to gauge interest and to find out, are we
blowing smoke here?
Yeah, what are we
Yeah.
doing here? Is this something that we want to be involved with? I will say, when it comes to Wright Pierce, I like the fact that they were calling our baby ugly, and they were asking questions. And it's tough to come into a presentation like this and say, you guys are going down the right path and you got a good vision, but you need to take a look at it. And, I respect them a lot for doing that. I'll say, from an engineering standpoint, at first I was leaning more towards Wright Pierce. And Weston and Sampson, I agree with you, they rose to the occasion tonight.
Yeah.
And they
Totally.
Yeah, they definitely put forth a good foot. But I was thinking, as we were going along before Fuss and O'Neill came up, that I was leaning more towards Wright Pierce. And then the Mary factor was really the factor that is the selling that we're gonna have to do, the PR and the education that we're going to have to do, even with people that we think know what we're talking about. I think we're gonna get more value out of that group. And then the fact that they were involved from the beginning, they know, they've got some history there. They can point to the point, a little redundant, but, they've done something in town. They're familiar with our community. Wright Pierce, I did like the fact that they brought up specific individuals, name dropped a little bit, and brought up Dave Boyer,
Yeah.
the DEP rep for the Central District. The fact that they have, right off the top of your head, you can certainly look that up, but the fact that they talk about having those conversations, they have that relationship was, I think, a positive for them. So I would say, if I was kind of narrowing it down right now, I'd have Wright Pierce and Fuss O'Neill in front of me, and I'd be comfortable with us paring it down to the two of them.
Okay, I'll jump in right now, because Melissa, hell, you had your chance, so we'll.
Yeah, 10 seconds are up.
Keith and Chris, you guys will wrap things up anyways, so you'll have the final word on the subject. But I actually, ended up in a kind of a similar analysis, Chuck, although I wrote a number of points down. Just to go with the one I guess I would put third in line right now is Weston Sampson. You know, they're kind of the safe choice. You know, they're clearly technical, but, you know, a couple of things, and maybe it's fair, maybe it's not fair, that stuck with me about them is I didn't think they had a lot of recognition of the specifics of our proposal in their presentation or in their our study, I should say, in their presentation. You know, I think the connection with Green International cuts both ways, because I live on New Estate Road, the most over-engineered road in the town right now. So, you know, that's it. Everything's nice, but there's a drain about every 4 feet, and. You know, I don't want to go. I don't want the town to go through that experience.
That was BC, before Chris.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was before Chris. So, you know, there's a lesson in there somewhere. I thought also that I'll do this for each of them. Their visual presentations, since so much of this has to be, you know, as is just recognized, a public presentation. I thought theirs was. It's just too verbal, a lot of words, a lot tough to read. It's like if you're at this stage of the game, you've been at it 120 years, you know, are you really changing with the times if you're putting up a screen? I just imagined a screen like that in the front of the room at town meeting, and people are just going to go into a blur and say, I don't get it. So, you know, I'll stipulate to their technical abilities. I just can't, it's tough to get away from them being seen as a, you know, big gray monolithic. We're, you know, Weston Sampson, you know, that's who we are, you know. Secondarily, Fuss and O'Neill, now I really wanted to like them, but boy, they threw out a bunch of hand grenades at different junctions that kind of caught me here. You know, their outreach into the community is great and original and thought-provoking, but they're here dropping names of businesses. I wonder if those folks had okayed that, or whether they're tuning in tonight choking on their, you know, dinner saying, I didn't know I was going to be referenced by name checked. You know, I mean, maybe they did, but I didn't get that. And, you know, and just kind of some of the comments made, you know, offhand, the reference to the McDonald's. Now, granted, they were quoting a person, but they perpetuate the myth that the sewering actually makes McDonald's more possible in town when it, you know, McDonald's can go, they're the one of the few that can afford to put their own septic system in, and they would if they had a drive-through. It's the drive-throughs that have kept the lack of drive-throughs.
If I could respond to that, because I hear you.
I mean,
and I could hear the upfront, the negative to that, but she also linked that to the fact that they actually read the master plan, and they said if you link the sewering with the master plan, you don't get the McDonald's.
They didn't say you don't get the McDonald's. They just said that one of the people they interviewed was, you know, it was, so if they'd gone ahead and corrected that, fine. I'm glad they mentioned the master plan, but there's a little bit of a bull in the china shop concept there too. Plus, they just kind of breezily said, this is really about economic development. No, it's not. They were overlooking the, you know, the real reasons we got started in this, and which, again, is running counter to the message we've been telling folks consistently since you and Savas, the water quality engineer, brought it forward, is that this is first and foremost an environmental and groundwater protection project, which has great economic development benefits. And then on the structural level, too, when they put it up there, you know, they're a big firm, but at the end of it, that pie chart kind of sold it to me. There are 4 different consultant groups that make up their picture. And I don't know, you know, Mr. Mailman said, you know, I'll be your principal point of contact, but he can't turn to the desk next to him and talk to the other 3. He has to get on the phone and call 3 other offices. And, you know, that both of the other firms, Weston Sampson because of their size, and Wright Pierce, I think, just because of who they, you know, are presenting them for, it's all going to be in-house, one shop, and I feel a comfort level with that. I don't want to beat the heck out of Fuss and O'Neill because I think they did grasp something very important, and that's that a lot of this is the sales pitch. But boy, shouldn't you do your dialogue with the board and the town before you know, engage in what that pitch is? I guess don't get ahead of us on it. I guess is part of it. I did like their visual presentation. That speaks well of their ability to communicate, you know, to people, and they get it, so I guess I see that point. But back to Wright Pierce, I had, I hate to say it, I fell in love at first sight with them, but I thought they were very good. They just seem to be the same scale with the town, they're at our level, and I can see those folks credibly speaking to townspeople and making a presentation and being compelling. And I thought, again, we've beat this point to death, but I do think it's important that more so than the others, they were willing to, engage the parts of our proposal or our original study that they found or thought, needed to be revisited. I thought they were the most Littleton specific of the group, with the noted exception of Fuss and O'Neill's, interviews. And I thought Wright Pierce's presentation was very digestible and understandable, their PowerPoint presentation. But I like Fuss and O'Neill. I just think there's some risks there. And, are they going to set off as many landmines as they,
Those are good points, Paul.
Yeah, so-
That's why I narrowed it down to the two.
So, yeah, I'm there too.
Yeah.
Melissa?
Melissa, it's your turn. You've got 20 minutes now.
Any way you can check your electronic devices very quickly and just give me 1 second?
To give you,
There's,
being asked a question.
yes, please. I just,
Let's see, well, we have a quorum. We have, we're at a posted public meeting.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Of which you're a member of another board and not on the team, but you can state your opinion.
Thank you. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't gonna break any rules and get in trouble later. Okay.
What the hell, you're
so-
leaving in a couple of months anyway.
Plausible deniability.
Problem is, those things tend to follow you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Larger crimes than that have gone unpunished. Let's just stipulate that for the record, right?
Rule-based.
Oh, do tell.
Okay, I thought, I don't disagree with.
Good looking out. It was,
Just making 100%.
Wow.
I'm not mute, I was just making sure. Okay, so Ray Pierce, they were really good with financial modeling, and I think that's gonna be a big part of it. So when they showed that line thing, I was like, all right, these guys are gonna have visuals about numbers and data. I didn't see the other half of the interview, but that part struck me as a good asset to have on the team. And also, I agree with you guys on the challenging the recommendations and, them really wanting to take a different look at it. So I thought that was really good. Oh, yeah, and to your point, Paul, I was making note to myself, and it seems like a small thing, but it's not, and that is just the visual way in which they presented information was very easily digestible. And I just thought, okay, this looks really good. I get it right away. I can see it. I can read it. I can get what they're getting. And I totally agreed when we got to the next one, Weston and Sampson. Even with the printout, I couldn't read it. And I agree with your comments there, just on the way they presented it. Now, at the same time, they seem to have a ton of experience in a lot of the reclaimed water and reuse, organics, energy, composted biosolids, groundwater discharge, site selection, permitting, renewable energy, and energy recovery financing, public outreach. They had the end-to-end, so that was the good about them. And then Fuss and O'Neill. So agree with all the good points. Paul, you made some good observations. I felt like there was a little bit of tension maybe between the principal guy and the lady. I was kind of picking up on that, like, she likes to talk and we're doing this as a team, and I'm like, there's something about that dynamic. But, I really liked how they took the time to personalize it to Littleton. The pictures were of Littleton. They knew the master plan was going on, and I agree. As soon as she said McDonald's, I looked at you. I was like, oh man. But I thought
I just got hungry.
Yeah, I know, right?
My kids love McDonald's. I don't know why everybody doesn't like it.
It was
They have a
good though that
quality
they
meal for a
entrenched
reasonable
themselves.
People just want to drive to another town to get it, that's all.
Yeah.
There's no McDonald's.
And then one other thing, maybe I didn't get this right, but didn't Fuss and O'Neill say that removing nitrogen was not going to be a
Yeah.
problem? And the guys before that said that nitrogen
Because of the
removal was
climate.
a problem? So I didn't know what to think of that.
Fuss and O'Neill is right.
Really?
Yeah, it's not gonna be a difficult issue to remove the nitrogen. The likelihood is that they'll use what's called an MBR, a microbioreactor, to actually treat the water when it comes into the plant. That treats nitrogen down to 2 milligrams per liter which is 1 milligram per liter above background in the ground. So,
Okay, thanks for clarifying. That's about it.
But the graph doesn't lie. I mean, what I liked about, I'd say of the three, I like Ray Pierce the best. I like the healthy skepticism. I happen to think this project will benefit greatly by healthy skepticism that we identify right up front and then address it and resolve it. Because I think that's going to be the key to getting political support, not just assume that we've got it and we're just going to keep selling it. I think the disconnect with Fuss and O'Neill might have been they were out making a sales pitch, and we're not even sure of the product yet.
Right.
And they were out selling the 2012 product. And what do you think of it, Mr. Business Owner? Well, I don't know. And what do we think about that 2012 project now brought up to the current day? I think that's something that we have to go through some kind of thing. So I do think that the skill set that they offer with their team is great because it's all part of selling it, but I think you have to be sure of the product first before you go out and sell it. I think that Weston and Sampson is not the right fit, not the right scale. They asked a lot of good questions, and they had the healthy skepticism there. I think Wright Pierce's approach to it, a studied approach, was a little, maybe serves us better. But I was just a little concerned about Fuss and O'Neill selling a product that we haven't checked all the boxes to make sure that that's still the product that we're selling in that form.
Can I jump in? Can I just-
Go for it.
Are we, is our objective tonight to come down with one person,
No.
task us to, okay, so.
No,
I think it can be.
Well, it could be, but I think that I think in fairness to those that if you know, unless it's a slam dunk, that, you know, everyone thinks that, you know,
Well,
the same,
so-
that there's
Can you
one
go
firm
and then
that's.
I will
Yeah,
tell
so-
you what I had?
Because ultimately, our task will be to rate them in order, 1, 2, and 3. And then we go with, and then once we choose number 1, we negotiate the price with number 1. If we are not able to succeed, then we go to number 2.
Right.
So the rank ordering matters. And
So I didn't get into the cons of Fuss and O'Neill, because I kind of narrowed it down to 2, and I figured that was where I was going. But one of the things, when asked the question about philosophy, second question, they didn't answer that. They talked about the 2012 study. They didn't get into the philosophy. Now, that's kind of embedded in what the presentation was, but for me, I would see that as an opportunity to sing my own praises and talk about my philosophy and pitch my own firm to us, the kind of the hiring authority. Paul, you mentioned it, and I had it down as one of my cons, was the economic development, leading with that, and Mary led with that, and that's one of the things that I cringed about, you know, because really the reason I wanted to get involved with this with you was the environmental impact and you know, reading the information that you guys spent so much time putting together.
you know why she said that, though, is because the 2012 report was all about economic development. So they're still living with the report.
Okay. I kind of got geography really shouldn't play a huge role in it, but I did feel the local feel from Wright Pierce over Fuss and O'Neill. Most of what they at least put in their packet was Connecticut or out of state, wasn't Massachusetts stuff. They had Easton, they had something else.
who
Hanover.
did? Which one are we talking about?
Fuss and O'Neill.
Fuss and O'Neill.
Yeah, a
We're
lot
at
of
the
what they
point, though.
presented was
So you got
Connecticut.
Littleton,
Yeah,
and they got Easton,
Yeah.
and they got several
but
in
relative to
Vermont.
smart soaring, yeah, they had a lot of Vermont and Connecticut. But that's that 91 belt, right? That's where
That's
you
true.
know, you're gonna work where you live. That was another point.
Why don't we do that?
Yeah, you and I?
Yeah, that's what I mean, you know.
Just the kind of you got a gut feel from the tension. I didn't get that feel, But I did get, although that one comment about she likes to talk, I don't know if that was appropriate, but they kind of seem like the heir apparent. Bruce comes in here as kind of the guru, he knows this stuff, and he was been involved in this, and they were involved in this. So they kind of came in as the you know, like,
You want us.
sort of. So maybe I was being more critical because I wrote down a lot more cons on them than I did on Wright Pierce.
Well,
Can I go?
no, I gotta do one more. I'm gonna give you,
No, it's
when-
fine, I just want,
yeah, well,
I wanna
you're
take
the
it.
engineer, and I think that you carry a lot of weight here. Or you should, in the way this,
chairs and claps.
So when I was a college student, and I encountered a question on exam that I didn't know the answer to, the first thing I did was, in my answer, I changed the nature of the question so I could answer with what I knew.
Sure.
That's what Wright Pierce just did.
How do you
They
mean?
changed the nature of the question by saying, well, we might not be able to apply these things, the sizing, and I happen to know that's not true. But you change the nature of the question so you can build what you're good at. That's what I heard them doing all the way through. That concerns me. Because without the revenue streams that we can get from thermal energy, from electric energy, and from reclaimed water, this project is unlikely to be viable.
Okay.
What, do you have any specific, I didn't see that. I mean, you've got more technical knowledge relative to this, so I just.
Okay, so in their questions, and I don't disagree that questioning the 2012 study is a good place to start, right? A lot of things have changed. There are a lot of new technologies out there that we should be taking advantage of. That's not what I heard. What new technology other than a wick for groundwater discharge did you hear? Not one. What they said was, at this size, a lot of these things won't apply.
I have to plead ignorance on the technical end of it, but I still take away from that a willingness to engage on something that they have a doubt with, and I'm more comfortable with that, because they understand what our bigger principle is and what our goal is, and I think they stated that often. Yeah, we'll get there, but some of these details have to be questioned, and they all did that to some level, but I mean, I think those folks made it much more.
Let me,
But I
can I,
need to hear.
Yeah, let Chris
Chris
go, because he's gonna bust a gut.
my brain's gonna blow. So,
But do we all?
no, I know.
No, we're all in this together.
I come at it at a purely technical end of it.
Okay.
The public outreach, in my opinion, is the secondary. Fuss and O'Neill,
Job.
there you go.
That's Melissa's job.
Fuss and O'Neill, to me, seems like they're very set on following the guidelines, I'll call it, of the 2012 report. Part of that, I believe, is because NSU is with them. The NSU drafted it, so I feel like they're gonna be, I'll call it, more in the box, less out of the box. That being said, I think any one of the three would be a fantastic company. We could work with any one of the three. Weston and Sampson, I believe, I agree with Paul, is the safest. If you want this project done, they'll do it. You're not gonna, I don't feel like any bells and whistles. I just think they're just the safest. They're like buying a Toyota. It's safe.
Hey.
I know. Ford. Hyundai. I drive a Hyundai. I look at it as I like people questioning things. Wright Pierce questions it. I don't want to move forward without making sure moving forward makes sense. I understand, Bob, what you're saying about them changing the question, so to speak. But to me, Wright Pierce is the best company to I mean, because we have nothing right now. We literally have nothing.
Well, we don't literally, we have a
But-
169 page report.
Yeah, but I mean, that's 5 years old.
Yeah, well, it's good value.
Yeah, I feel like Wright Pierce is gonna ask the right questions to be able to take that report, make it make sense on a smaller scale, like Littleton is. I tend to agree with him about this economic of scale do play a major role in some of these ideas that were in that study. To me, Wright Pierce is number one on a totally technical level. I think any one of them can sell the product. I agree that Wright Pierce's presentation was the best, the easiest to read. So if you're going by that measure, I think they would be the easiest to sell to the public. I think those two were fantastic presenters. It was easy to understand them. Kind of biased because I am the technical side of it, so I understand it more. I think you're going to get more bang for your buck with Wright Pierce. And I don't think it's close. If that makes anybody's decision changes their decision. I think they're far superior, I guess, is a better way to.
Unless there's a deal breaker in the, in either the financial negotiations or the references, then, it sounds like we're not in consensus, but we're close, that everybody seems to have Weston Sampson 3, right?
Yeah.
And I've got Wright Pierce 1 and Fuss and Neal 2.
I agree.
You do? Bob, it's the other way around?
Yeah, Fuss O'Neill one, Wright Pierce two.
Yeah.
Chuck,
But
you
it
were,
doesn't,
yeah.
it doesn't have to be a unanimous decision.
No, I mean, it's, it's basically, we're recommending to you to recommend to us.
Right, and if the consensus is Wright Pierce 1, Fuss and O'Neill 2, I think that the due diligence of getting getting the reference checks on both of those would help us to inform our choice, so that at the end, we're ranking, we're absolutely comfortable ranking one as first, the other as second, and then we're already got Weston and
But
Sampson.
in the interest of our own time, is there any reason we can't be doing that due diligence while you two or whoever it is goes and has the initial conversation? I mean, we could, we've got a ranking here, unless, I don't know.
I was kind of on the fence with those two, so
Yeah.
I don't think.
I don't think you want to formally have have a binding ranking that concludes this process until we've completed the
I agree.
reference checks, and I think that's in fairness to both of them.
I agree.
And to us, and certainly to us.
So when do you anticipate our being able to make a decision so that we can make an offer, seeing how we already have a consensus?
Yeah, I mean, I can start
Wait,
calling
like,
tomorrow, but the reality is,
yeah.
People don't answer, phone
Pick,
calls
yeah,
back,
pick
in
a,
3
yeah,
or
pick
4
a day,
days.
late next week, to have
We could do,
this convene.
we could do Thursday.
Reconvene next Thursday.
Next Thursday.
Or whatever date.
What's the date next Thursday?
30th.
Today's date. That's it.
Oh, no, don't give me something
Glad I could
technical
help.
like that.
Yeah, the 30th.
The 30th, and I don't have any
Wanna do
meetings
6:30
next
this time?
Thursday. How about that? How'd that happen?
I mean, I'd rather
Anywhere?
noon, but that's me.
No, I can get that.
5:30?
I like 5:30.
5:30 on the 30th?
Sure. Love it.
At which point
I'd
you'll,
like to take my
at which point there'll be a formal
Go do Wednesday.
recommendation. And I do think it's fair, because, I mean, I hear the concerns that are expressed about is, I mean, really what we're looking at now is the capacity of either one to take this across the goal line, and that's.
Thank you for hanging in there, Anna.
That's what we've got
Good
to
stuff.
find,
Thank you.
that's what we've got to find out in this next process, so.
All right, let's,
Handicap the length of this meeting, because I've got another meeting at 7 o'clock.
1 hour tops.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, half
15
hour.
minutes.
basically, if we
Yeah,
walk
15
in and things
minutes.
haven't changed, we're just gonna reiterate what we just said. Yeah.
Fair enough, yeah. 15,
And then,
yeah.
so basically, I'm gonna call all the respondents, all the references, check them out, and I'm gonna come back in and make my
You'll make your
recommendation.
presentation.
And just
Yeah,
let you know
yeah,
what
good
I found,
15,
and then that's
yeah.
when we'll make our decision, 1, 2,
And you
3.
and if you give it to us further, if you give it to us in advance, then the meeting is surely the last 15 minutes.
All right, then that's what I'll do.
5:30
That's-
PM, right?
PM, 5:30
AM?
PM.
Right.
I could make 5:30 AM, no problem.
Okay, then that's
Already
fine.
here.
Like I said, we'll do it that, and then I'll try to, I'll start calling tomorrow, and hopefully we
But
get response.
we are in such good shape with these three
Absolutely.
proposers.
Yes.
And that we are, because I really see the mission here is to be absolutely sure about what the product is that we're selling.
That's fine, but there's the real politic of the time window. I don't expect them to do a lot of the work between now and town meeting.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Once town meetings you're gonna be lucky if, they're gonna be on board barely.
Well, that's,
Yeah,
all
most
the-
likely,
all
most
the
likely.
reason-
I think the next fall is like, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
most likely what you're gonna get, if you want anything at town meeting, is gonna be that presentation you just saw.
that's fine.
And that's
But I want them
about
to,
the amount of work you're.
but we also, yeah, and we, hopefully we made it clear to them, we asked to have it made clear to the applicants that they know that going out to meet the public is,
Oh, they know.
is part of it. So we're gonna be doing a public info session on our funding article sometime in the middle of April. So whoever's on board's gotta be there for that meeting, just to say, hi, we're the new kids on town.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just saying, you're not gonna get any substantial work.
No, I don't
between
think
now
that's expected, but I think it is incumbent on us, if we're
Yes,
going back
putting a-
for our
putting a
second.
fa- yeah, putting a face to the
it.
name.
We told people last fall, give us the first round, we'll go out and hire somebody, we'll come back in the spring, and they'll explain to you what the next step in the process is. So that's where we're at.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's good.
just-
That's a
you know,
that's realistic.
I don't wanna make rush decisions, obviously, but I don't wanna waste any time if the quicker we can get somebody on board, the better, in my mind.
Okay.
So as far as references are concerned, do we want to, there's some that we would feel more weighted than others, right? If it's a smart sewer project, that's.
Yeah, I would've I'd be shocked, where are their references, do you know? I'd be shocked if they put references in here that weren't relevant. Of course I can't find the damn thing.
Have you ever put a reference in where you knew you were gonna get a bad one?
No, I'm not
That's
talking
what-
about that, I'm
that's
just
what
talking
I
about
said.
the.
Relevant
just
to our
more
project.
relevant,
I've
yeah.
had people call me for reference, like, this person said you were a reference for them,
There's
and I'm like,
Fuss and O'Neill's.
oh, that's not
When I do reference checks, I call everybody in the world but the list of people they call. So what good are those?
That's when they.
When you do me a favor. Ask how many Gillette stadiums, which is unique in the United
But it's
States.
that's a pretty cool project, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie.
Yeah, and how many Eastons they've actually done. Easton is that,
I wanna know
they
how
showed
many-
that brick building,
I wanna know how many.
which is their
Bluetooths.
wastewater treatment plant. A third of that water goes back for reuse in the town. A third goes for restoration of natural hydrology.
Right. We're not, Littleton is not a community that goes from 0 to 63,000. So I'd want to know how many have done in Littleton.
He's talking about Gillette. You said, have they done a Gillette? We don't care if they've done a Gillette. I don't care
Well-
if they've done a Gillette. I really don't. It's a
Well,
different, it's a different animal.
I'm
It is a
talking about
different
sustainability projects.
Chris, is the
They all,
meeting over?
everybody
Can I
can
throw
talk
this
about
Yeah, the meeting's over,
sustainability.
'cause I wanna
Do
go
you know
home.
how many sustainability projects there are in the state of?